Chapter 13:13. Who else wants the secret key? You can come and get it now. An arrogant aura spread out from the collapsed wind slasher platform. Chuhen's might was like a thunderbolt, suppressing the entire place. At this moment, the hearts of everyone present trembled along with him, and their faces surged with indescribably complicated and terrified expressions. Even though the secret key in Chu Hen's hand was glowing like a treasure and emitted a mysterious aura that moved people's hearts, the geniuses from the various sects and forces stopped in their tracks. No one dared to reply. Once Yang Zhongxiao was defeated, who would dare to fight against Chu Hen? Everyone subconsciously swept their gazes towards the teams from the Galaxy City and the Hanyan sect. Apart from Qiu Xingyi, only Lu Yinda from the Galaxy City, who was on the ranking list, was left. Even though Lu Yinda was ranked last on the ranking list, he gave off a low-profile feeling from the beginning. Let's go. At that moment, Lu Yinda unhurriedly dusted off the dust on his clothes and left with the people from the Galaxy City beside him. From the beginning until the end, he was just a spectator. On the other side, the people from the Han Yun sect looked at each other. Their faces were filled with solemnity. Looks like Senior E is late again. I knew that madman E was never reliable. Forget it, we can leave now. The people from the Han Yun sect shook their heads and glanced at the secret key in Chu Hen's hand reluctantly. At the same time, they looked at the people from the martial sect with admiration and left the place as well. The departure of the Galaxy City and the Han Yun sect meant that they had given up on the fight for the secret key. Their departure immediately cut off the thoughts of the remaining people. We can leave now. The secret key belongs to the martial sect. Even the Five Elements clan couldn't take it. What else can you think? That's why. Staying here is just a waste of time. From today onwards, the martial sect has another genius on the ranking list. I'm actually a little excited. Will something unexpected happen later? Amidst the clamorous discussions, the crowd that had gathered around the wind slasher platform gradually dispersed. The howling cold wind gradually calmed down. The ground cracked and the battle platform collapsed. The remains of the battle showed how intense the battle had been. The people of the martial sect were silent. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the others all stared at the young figure in the sky with complicated expressions. Everyone's heart was filled with questions. Everyone's heart was filled with shock. From the purple, profound killer's divine lightning to the 10th magnificent star jade. Other than the crowd's astonishment, Chu Hen's identity and background seemed to have become even more mysterious. About half an hour later, in a forest several kilometers away from the wind slasher platform, Senior Brother Qiu, your wound has stopped bleeding. Do you have any other injuries? Zhao Qingkai asked as he put away the pill. At the same time, Zhao Qingyi slowly withdrew a ball of emerald green light from her palm. Qiu Xingyi sat on a rock with a thick layer of gauze wrapped around his chest. He circulated his qi slightly, and his furrowed brows gradually relaxed. Finally, he waved his hand, indicating that he was fine. Sorry to trouble you. It's all right. My brother and I have the Sacred Tree body bloodline boundary, and we have pretty good healing and recovery abilities. Although your injury is a little serious, it will heal in a few days. Zhao Qingkai replied. After saying that, she turned to look at Chu Hen not far away. Her eyes shone with a faint light and a trace of worry. Chu Hen, are you injured? I'll help you heal. Everyone's gaze gathered on him. Chu Hen raised his brows slightly and smiled as he shook his head. Are you really fine? Zhao Qingkai seemed a little worried. I'm fine, don't worry. Then you're really amazing. You defeated someone as powerful as Yang Zhongxiao, and yet you're not injured at all. Isn't that so? Wu Mian carried a smug, sneaky smile as he jumped out from the crowd behind. He put one hand on Chu Hen's shoulder and said with incomparable pride, This is a person that I, Old Wu, personally brought into the school. I, Old Wu, may not have any other skills, but my eyesight is definitely first-rate. Shameless. Ding Xiaoyun, Wild Monkey, and Daimen, who were standing behind him, cursed in their hearts. Compared to before, the atmosphere was much more relaxed. Defeating Yang Zhongxiao of the Five Elements clan and obtaining the secret key had greatly boosted the morale of the martial sect disciples. You're really good at concealing your abilities. You've even learned the North Star mantra. Qi Qianying, who is usually quiet, could not help but speak up. At the mention of the North Star mantra, everyone became even more restless, especially Wu Yan, who looked at him in confusion. With regards to everyone's confusion, Chu Hen could not possibly explain it to them one by one, so he only smiled faintly. Junior brother Chu Hen, thank goodness we have you. Otherwise, we would have been completely defeated, Qiu Xingyi said solemnly. Senior brother Qiu, you're too kind. As a member of the martial sect, I will naturally do my best for the sect, Chu Hen replied seriously. Qiu Xingyi's eyes revealed a complicated expression, but there was also a hint of gratitude between his brows. I've had a personal grudge with Yang Zhongxiao for many years, but in the end, I still couldn't defeat him. Thank goodness we have you today. Chu Hen sniffed lightly and raised his eyebrows. Senior brother Qiu, there's no need to belittle yourself. The martial sect still needs your guidance. That's right, I have something to give you. With that, Chu Hen flipped his palm. Buzz! The air trembled slightly, and a powerful wave of energy rippled outwards. Everyone's heart suddenly jolted. In Chu Hen's palm, there were about 10 round, strange medicinal pills floating in the air. There were dark and complicated patterns on the surface of each medicinal pill, and they were shrouded in a dense, blood-colored steam. This? Wang Li's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but exclaim, could it be the supreme, sacred explosive blood pill? What? The moment they heard the words supreme, sacred explosive blood pill, everyone's heart trembled. Apart from Wu Yan, everyone else was filled with excitement. The corners of Qiu Xingyi's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was an unconcealable emotion on his face. Where did you get it from? Chu Hen smiled without saying anything. He first exchanged glances with Wu Yan, then passed the supreme sacred explosive blood pill in his palm to Qiu Xingyi. Qiu Xingyi's hands were trembling slightly. When he saw Chu Hen's confident gaze, Qiu Xingyi could not help but understand why he had spared Yang Zhongxiao's life. In the end, the grudges that should be settled by him had to be settled by him. Qiu Xingyi let out a deep breath and took the 10 supreme, sacred explosive blood pills that Chu Hen had passed to him with both hands. Looking at the medicinal pills that were surging with dense, blood-colored steam, it was as though he was looking at rare treasures in the world. Everyone, Chu Hen looked at the other martial sect disciples and said apologetically, there's a limited number of supreme, sacred explosive blood pills, so I can only let senior brother Qiu distribute them to 10 people first. However, we still have the keys. When the next ruin opens, everyone will have a share of the inheritance power inside. Although the martial sect disciples were slightly disappointed, they could understand. It's all right, junior brother Chu Hen. We all know our own abilities. With our abilities, it will be a waste for us to consume the supreme, sacred explosive blood pill. That's right. We will try our best to fight for the ruin that opens later. The martial sect will definitely win. We will definitely win. The martial sect disciples' morale was reignited once again as their blood boiled in their throats. Subsequently, Qiu Xingyi distributed the supreme, sacred explosive blood pills to the few people around him. The top 10 on the martial sect Heaven Martial leaderboard would definitely get a share. However, Long Xuan and Yi Yao were not here, so their spots could be emptied. Moreover, Wei also had 2 supreme sacred explosive blood pills, so there was no need for them to get share. In the end, Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai also got a supreme sacred explosive blood pill. Without a doubt, these 10 supreme sacred explosive blood pills would greatly increase the overall strength of the martial sect team. In the upcoming Holy War, they would also be more competitive than before. It's all thanks to you. I feel like I can try to break into the excellence leaderboard later. Wang Li held the explosive blood pill in one hand as his eyes shone brightly. There's indeed hope. Qi Qianying was also looking forward to it. The martial sect disciples who received the supreme, sacred explosive blood pill were especially excited, except for one person. Pei Ye's face was not looking good, and there was an indescribable gloom in his eyes. He clenched the palm that was holding the explosive blood pill into a fist, and his knuckles were faintly white. Of course, Qiu Xingyi and the rest had a tacit understanding of Pei Ye's emotions. There's no time to lose. Let's head to the ancient site immediately, Wang Li said impatiently. The few of them looked at Chu Hen. Chu Hen flipped his hand and took out the secret key. The metal frame of the cube was overflowing with spiritual light, and the flickering light was very dazzling. Then, with a thought, Chu Hen released a wisp of true core energy from his body and injected it into the secret key. Buzz! With a slight rhythm, the secret key shone brightly, and thousands of luxurious white lights flowed out like silk. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the soft lights quickly intertwined, and like an ancient talisman array, it immediately turned into a layer of almost transparent light screen. The screen showed a rough topographic map and a red dot marked on it. Everyone's attention was focused on the red dot, and they began to calculate its location. It's in the northwest direction, Wu Yin said. Chu Hen nodded and retracted his true core energy, and the dazzling light that was emitted by the secret key immediately disappeared. Just as everyone was about to set off, Chu Hen placed the secret key in Qiu Xingyi's hand again. Senior brother Qiu, you guys go first. I'll catch up later. Everyone could not help but be stunned. Why? Qiu Xingyi asked in confusion. I have something with Li Yuan Liang. Everyone was even more confused. Hanyan's sex Li Yuan Liang? The one with the nickname Sky Sword Finger? Wu Yin asked. Yes. Chapter 13-14. At the edge of a majestic cliff, the mountains and rivers were spectacular. The undulating cliffs were like dragons that had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years. Did senior brother Yi Zhou die on the way here? Why isn't he here yet? At that moment, the Hanyan sect people who were waiting for the others to gather seemed to be a little anxious, especially the two female disciples. They had a lot of opinions about the person named Yi Zhou. Calm down. It's not like you don't know Lunatic Yi's character. No matter what he does, he likes to drag things out. Who knows? He might even forget to look for us. How could he forget that? I'd rather he die on the way here. Shoo, lower your voice. If Lunatic Yi hears us, we'll be kicked off the cliff by him. We'll wait for another half an hour. If senior brother Yi Zhou still hasn't arrived, we'll leave, a young man with a more mature temperament said. The rest of them agreed. Let's do that. What if Lunatic Yi finds fault with us after we leave? He won't have the cheek to find fault with us. If it wasn't for him, the key wouldn't have fallen into someone else's hands. At this moment, the sound of rushing wind could be heard coming from afar. Everyone was stunned. They could not help but shake their heads and smile wryly. Speak of Zhang, San, and he'll be here. No matter what, we'll push all the blame to him later. Swoosh! A figure with an extraordinary bearing immediately flashed and landed in front of everyone. The people from the Hanyan sect were just about to open their mouths to push the blame when they were involuntarily stunned. The person who came was not Lunatic Yi, but the martial ancestor sect disciple who looked down on everyone on the Wind Slasher platform. It's you. When they saw Chu Hen, everyone from the Hanyan school couldn't help but reveal vigilance. What business do you have with us? The leader of the group asked in a low voice. Chu Hen raised his hand slightly and replied humbly, Everyone, please don't be surprised. I'm here to look for Towering Sword Finger, Li Yuan Liang, senior brother Li's. Looking for Li Yuan Liang? The people were even more shocked. They then turned to look at Li Yuan Liang. After a brief moment of surprise, Li Yuan Liang seemed to have understood something. He walked forward and nodded gently. Looks like I didn't mistake you for someone else. We met in the tomb of immortals and demons before. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and cupped his fists. Senior brother Li, you have a good memory. Li Yuan Liang laughed awkwardly. I'm really ashamed. I didn't know you had such a powerful cultivation. Chu Hen politely nodded his head and did not give any response. You're here for the 4 soul spirits with the Grand Desolation attribute? After a simple exchange of pleasantries, Li Yuan Liang went straight to the point. Just now, he could see that Chu Hen had grasped a few other powerful Sun Luo powers. Thinking back to the series of unforeseen events that had happened in the immortal demon tomb, Li Yuanliang felt that other than the four spiritual souls of the power of desolates, there was no other reason for Chu Hen to seek him out. Yes, since Li Yuanliang was so straightforward, Chu Hen naturally admitted it. Although he had guessed Chu Hen's intention, Li Yuanliang did not seem to be willing to hand over the four spiritual souls. He said with a troubled expression, I won't take your things for nothing. I want to use this item to exchange for the four spiritual souls. As he spoke, Chu Hen flipped his hand, and a dark golden elixir surrounded by blood-colored steam immediately floated in his palm. Supreme Sacred Explosive Blood Elixir? The expressions of the people from the Han Yun sect suddenly changed. Everyone's eyes were filled with a strong desire. Is it really the Supreme Sacred Explosive Blood Elixir? It should be. The quality of the elixir could be determined from the flowing blood-colored steam and the surging energy waves. Li Yuanliang clenched his fists and stared at Chu Hen's calm face in disbelief. You? Exchanging the supreme, sacred, explosive blood elixir for the four spiritual souls of the great desolation attribute. It should not be a loss for you. Chu Hen said with a smile. Li Yuanliang fell into hesitation. The four spiritual souls were an ancient treasure refined by the overlord of the demon clan, the Yama King. It was a whole, but it could also be divided into four parts. Although Li Yuanliang did not thoroughly study the four spiritual souls in the past, he could still control a part of its power. He could guess that the four spiritual souls would only be able to unleash its greatest power when they were completely combined. With Li Yuanliang's ability, naturally, he would not be able to obtain the other three. Therefore, from a certain point of view, even if Li Yuanliang held the four spiritual souls in his hand for the rest of his life, the benefits he would gain from it would be quite limited. On the other hand, the Supreme Sacred Explosive Blood Elixir was the world's top Grade 1 elixir. It was a precious item even in the eyes of Saint King Realm Powerhouse. In other words, the explosive blood elixir would definitely be more useful to Li Yuanliang than the four spiritual souls of the desolation attribute. All right, I agree. After a short consideration, Li Yuanliang made a decision decisively. Chu Hen's heart lit up, and he could not help but feel happy. The four spiritual souls alone would not be of much help to Li Yuanliang, but for Chu Hen, it was like the last piece of the Jade treasure map. One could imagine how excited he was. Immediately after, Li Yuanliang opened his left hand and quickly circulated the true yuan in his body. The surrounding airflow quickly rotated restlessly, and a dozen or so dark gray light beams intertwined with each other. Wong! A light trembled, and a crystal glowing with a gray halo appeared in Li Yuanliang's palm. The crystal had edges and corners, and did not look regular. Inside it, there were flowing qi patterns. The qi patterns were like shadows, and they overlapped with each other, giving off a strange dreamlike feeling. The faint gray halo contained an astonishing desolation aura, and one could faintly see that the surrounding air had become a bit turbid. Many thanks for senior brother Li's help, Chu Hen said happily. Li Yuanliang nodded, and took the lead in handing the four spiritual souls to Chu Hen. Just as Chu Hen stretched out his hand to receive it, a piercingly cold wind suddenly blew. Immediately after, a long and narrow black shadow wrapped around Li Yuanliang's arm. Shadow capturing technique. Li Yuanliang was shocked. The expressions of the other Han Yun sect members also changed. Senior brother Ezhou? Before anyone could react, the black shadow wrapped around Li Yuanliang's arm lifted up. Li Yuanliang's arm shook, and the four spiritual souls in his palm immediately flew out of his hand. Whoosh! Immediately after, a ghostly black shadow swept over everyone's head and directly collected the four spiritual souls that had been thrown into the air. Chu Hen's eyes focused, and he looked up, only to see that the shadow was illusory and blurry, like a cloud of black fog. This kind of magical power was quite similar to the shadow holy body bloodline limit that Li Yuanliang had displayed in the immortal and devil tomb. Senior brother Ezhou, what are you doing? A Han Yun sect disciple asked loudly. But before he could finish speaking, a whoosh sound was heard, and the black shadow immediately turned into a blur and flew towards the dense forest below the cliff. If you want the 4 spiritual souls, you have to catch up to me first. Chapter 13:15. If you want the 4 souls, you'll have to catch up to me first. Swoosh like a spear in the night, everyone could only see a shadow flashing by. In just a blink of an eye, he had already disappeared into the dense forest at the bottom of the cliff. Chu Hen and the people from Han Yun's sect did not react in time. Li Yuanliang, in particular, stood there awkwardly. He did not know if he should retract his outstretched hand. Senior brother Yi Zhou is going crazy again, a Han Yun sect disciple said helplessly as he shook his head. They seemed to have gotten used to the current situation. Apart from sighing, they were not surprised. What's going on in this guy's head? It's fine if he's late, but he's still causing trouble. They looked in the direction Yi Zhou had disappeared and looked at Li Yuanliang, who was standing next to him with pity. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is that person from your Hanyan sect?" Li Yuanliang nodded in confirmation. "I understand," Chu Hen replied before raising the arm that was holding the supreme, sane explosive blood pill. "Since that's the case, you can keep this medicinal pill first. I'll go and retrieve the 4 souls." Li Yuanliang was stunned. The other people from Han Yun's sect looked at him in shock. Since the 4 souls were snatched from Li Yuanliang, the deal was not completed. Li Yuanliang had to bear the responsibility. However, the last 4 spiritual souls were extremely important to Chu Hen, so he did not plan on wasting time here. The eyes of the people from Han Yun's sect softened. Li Yuanliang nodded solemnly and took the supreme, saint explosive blood pill from Chu Hen's hand. "Don't worry, if senior brother Yi Zhou comes back, I'll help you get back the 4 soul spirits. However, the possibility of that is relatively small. Also, senior brother Yi Zhou is the same as me. We both have the bloodline limit of the shadow transformation holy body, but his control over the bloodline power is far from what I can compare to. Thank you for telling me." Chu Hen nodded slightly and cupped his fists. "I'll take my leave now." After speaking, Chu Hen's body also moved. Immediately, he transformed into a ray of light and flashed down the cliff. Everything had happened so suddenly. Just as the 4 soul spirits were about to fall into their hands, Yi Zhou suddenly appeared. Although it was a little troublesome, Chu Hen did not intend to give up just like that. In addition, on the side of the martial sect, Xiao Xingyi, Wang Li, and the others had already brought the keys to the next inheritance ruins. He only needed to rush back before the ruins opened. Swish, swish, like the wind and lightning, there were constantly electric arcs streaking across the void. Chu Hen's speed was extremely fast, like a flashing lightning aurora. The aura has been locked on. Sensing the faintly discernible aura, Chu Hen's heart lit up. He immediately dove into the depths of the lush forest without hesitation. Towering trees with luxuriant foliage stood erect. Thistles and thorns covered the ground, and the depths of the forest were dark and damp, giving off a feeling of danger lurking in every corner. Not a single leaf touched Chu Hen's body. His figure was like a swallow as he quickly shuttled through the forest. Soon, 2 to 3 miles ahead, a rapidly flashing black shadow quietly entered Chu Hen's line of sight. "I've caught up to you." The corner of Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He condensed his palm, and a beam of green light flickered. The blue sky sword immediately fell into his right palm. Chi. The bewitching and gorgeous purple electric arcs were like intertwining light vines that scuttled down the sword. Without saying a word, Chu Hen waved his sword. Crack! A sharp and rapid wind-breaking force swept out, illuminating the dark jungle in an instant. The swift and fierce thunder and lightning sword beam was like a thunder python. It crossed 2 miles in the blink of an eye and chased after that black shadow. The black shadow in front of him obviously paused for a moment. As so fast, clang, a heavy loud sound reverberated in the forest. The dazzling electric light shone to every corner of the surroundings, and the power of thunder fell. The ground burst open rapidly, and the sharp sword light cut the trees in half. Among the flying rocks, the black shadow was actually not affected at all. Like a graceful butterfly, it quietly avoided the attack range of the biting cold sword force. "You're a bit ruthless. My arms and legs were almost crippled," the other party said. Chu-Hen couldn't help but find it funny. This guy obviously provoked him first, but now he said that he was too ruthless. "I say, senior martial brother of the Hanyan sect, why did you steal the 4 spiritual souls?" Chu-Hen held his sword and moved, chasing after the black shadow as he asked. I wanted to borrow the 4 spiritual souls from that silly boy, Li Yuanliang, to play with, but he didn't agree. Today is the perfect opportunity. If you want to borrow it to play with, I'll lend it to you. This is what you said. Then come find me in 10 years. 10 years? Chu-Hen frowned slightly. Since you're being unreasonable, then I can only offend you. Come on, I want to see what other skills you have. The other party didn't let it go. Although he didn't know what this Izhou's goal was, Chu-Hen wouldn't let go of the 4 spiritual souls no matter what. Zap zap! Streaks of brilliant purple lightning interweaved and overflowed from Chu-Hen's body. The flowing purple lightning surrounded his body, forming ring-shaped electric blades. As Chu-Hen moved, any trees in front of him that came into contact with the ring-shaped electric blades were directly cut into pieces. With the protection of the purple lightning, Chu-Hen didn't need to avoid the trees in front of him at all. His long body went straight down, moving forward in a straight line. Bang, bang, bang. The tall trees were smashed into pieces. Chu-Hen was like a violent purple whirlwind, breaking through layers of obstacles, quickly closing the distance between him and the black shadow. Feeling the powerful aura behind him, the black shadow in front of him was slightly surprised. "That's a bit interesting, but it won't be that easy to catch up to me." Then a strange wave of power emanated from the black shadow. Immediately afterward, the entire forest set off an obscure spatial rhythm. The corner of Chu-Hen's eyes narrowed, and he was shocked to find that the shadows of the trees around him were slightly swaying. The changes of the shadows depended on the trees themselves or the projection of the light. However, there were no changes between the two. Swoosh! Before Chu-Hen could react, the shadows of the trees around him suddenly came to life. The elongated shadows suddenly became sharp, and they all attacked Chu-Hen from all directions. "This is?" Chu-Hen was startled. He immediately leapt away from his original position and dodged. Buzz! Dozens of interweaving shadows were like thorny spears, crossing each other and quickly blocking Chu-Hen's path forward. He can actually use the shadows of the things around him to launch attacks. Chu-Hen was secretly shocked. It was no wonder that Li Yuanliang had said that Izhou's shadow transformation, sacred physique bloodline power, was far from what he could compare to. Just based on this point, Izhou's divine ability was extremely shocking. Swoosh! Whoosh! One shadow after another attacked Chu-Hen from the side, and Chu-Hen moved like a stream of light, instantly changing more than 10 positions to dodge. Although the shadow's attack affected Chu-Hen's movement speed, the distance between him and Izhou was not too far apart. What an elegant movement skill! Izhou was more and more surprised by Chu-Hen's performance. Then he smiled sinisterly. Let's see how you dodge now." As soon as he finished speaking, an especially strong wave of power rose in the huge forest. In an instant, with Chu-Hen as the center, the shadows of all the trees within a radius of several miles were dragged out. Chu-Hen was like a point of light that was being focused. Front, back, left, right, thousands of rapidly lengthening and sharpening tree shadows were like sharp swords returning to their roots, enveloping Chu-Hen. There was no angle for him to dodge. Chu-Hen's eyes darkened, and he immediately erupted with a more vigorous aura. The purple ring-shaped electric blade that lingered around his body swept out like a small whirlpool. However, the purple ring-shaped electric blade intertwined with the many shadows and did not produce the slightest collision. All the black tree shadows actually ignored Chu-Hen's defense, and all of them pierced through the purple ring-shaped electric blade and attacked Chu-Hen in the center. What? Chu-Hen's pupils shrank. Friendly reminder, the shadow is not a physical body, so normal defense is ineffective. Ijo's slightly mocking laughter sounded. Ignore defense? Chu Hen was shocked. Isn't this a little too unsolvable? Since the shadow was not a physical body, it should not be able to cause harm to the human body, right? The answer? Obviously not. Hiss. The moment the densely packed, sharp shadow passed through the ring-shaped electric blade, it immediately invaded Chu Hen, like thorns piercing his body, and a strong, tingling feeling quickly spread throughout his body. Although it is not a physical body, I can make it physical for a short time. Young man, you are still too young. Don't chase after people you see in the future. You may die. A few words of pride came from the black shadow. The shadow that seemed real and fake was like a steel knife, deeply piercing into the flesh. Chu Hen felt like he was trapped in a dense sea urchin spear. His whole body seemed to be frozen, and if he moved casually, those solid shadow thorns would pierce in his flesh. Hiss. The purple lightning that lingered around his body gradually weakened. Chu Hen frowned slightly, and a trace of cold light surged in his eyes. Phew! The black shadow flew over Chu Hen, as if showing off. Then, this is a free-point question. Do you still want the 4 souls? Hee. As soon as the other party finished speaking, a frivolous sneer appeared on Chu Hen's face. I'm afraid it's too early for you to be happy. Oh? Along with the other party's surprised voice, an extremely violent purple lightning once again erupted from Chu Hen's body. Lightning seemed to flash in his eyes, and the ground around him suddenly cracked. Purple lightning, 1,000 lightning escape. Boom! The mountains collapsed, and the earth cracked. One after another, peerlessly powerful lightning pillars shot out of the ground like flood dragons and giant pythons. Their monstrous momentum shook the surroundings. The lush forest seemed to have been struck by the lightning tribulation, and the lush, towering trees were smashed into pieces. Bang, bang, bang. The surrounding trees were swept away, and the surrounding trees were destroyed. The black shadow that pierced into Chu Hen's body quickly disappeared. Streaks of shadow thorns dissipated around Chu Hen's body, and the shackles were instantly lifted. Chu Hen was like a lightning beast that broke through its shackles, and thousands of lightning bolts interweaved, forming a huge net that covered the sky. Chi. Lightning flashed in Chu Hen's eyes, and he stared coldly at the black shadow in the sky. Once the body of the tree is destroyed, there will be no shadow. Since the other party was using the shadow of the surrounding objects to attack, then he only needed to destroy the object itself. This seemingly unbreakable move actually had a huge flaw. The black shadow did not answer. He was somewhat surprised that Chu Hen was able to break through this deadlock in an instant. After all, in that kind of situation, he was still able to think of a countermeasure so calmly. His heart was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Clang! Thousands of lightning bolts interweaved, and dozens of shocking lightning pillars pierced through the sky. Chu Hen was like the ruler of this lightning region, and he stared at the black shadow trapped in the huge lightning net. Chapter 13:16. Then, shouldn't you return the 4 souls to me? Similarly, the same light and mocking words came out of Chu Hen's mouth. A magnificent and peerless 3-dimensional net of purple lightning hid the sky and covered the earth, enveloping a radius of several miles. Chu Hen's eyes were flickering with lightning. He held the blue sky sword in one hand and condensed the power of endless lightning in the other. His majestic momentum was like the ruler of this world. Ijo, who had transformed into a black shadow, was like a cloud hanging in the sky. Compared with the monstrous power that Chu Hen exuded, Ijo was like a bird in a cage, surrounded by the cage railings formed by shocking lightning pillars. Hee, you can guess if I will return it to you. Just as Ijo's voice faded, Chu Hen's eyes suddenly lifted and 2 fierce rays of light shot out. Following that, the 5 fingers of his left hand clenched, and an invisible aura seemed to attract the might of the 9th heaven's thunder. Rumble. Thunder roared, and the many lightning pillars that gathered above the two were like giant dragons and fierce beasts rushing down, a path of fire and lightning, bombarding Ijo's position. Boom! The next moment, a deafening loud noise suddenly exploded in the sky. The world trembled, and the entire dense forest below was turbulent. Thousands of lightning tribulations interweaved in the sky, and in an instant, the splashing lightning was like a huge lightning net blooming. Endless purple light flickered in the sky, and the chaotic lightning caused the ground to collapse layer by layer. A piercingly cold wave of air whistled through the sky, and a black shadow quickly swept out in the area where the violent lightning pillars intertwined. "You're serious?" "Of course," Chu Hen faintly replied. Soon after, he dragged a beam of light in the air and flew to the front of the afterimage. The blue sky sword in his hand was unsheathed. Traces of lightning lingered on the sharp edge of the sword as it attacked the opponent in the form of a frontal stab. At the same time, the front of the black shadow quickly solidified and then turned into a thick and powerful palm. The opponent raised his palm to meet it, and the vigorous palm momentum surged like a surging tide. Bang! The sword and the palm collided, and a violent shockwave immediately exploded from within. At the same time, a strong wave of air swept out in all directions, and the shadow that Izhou had transformed into actually leaped backward with the help of this recoil. "I'm not fighting anymore. Goodbye. Xiao." Then, he glided through the air, and in the blink of an eye, he was already 7 or 8 miles away. Chu Hen furrowed his brows. Naturally, he would not allow the other party to escape. Without the slightest hesitation, he gave chase. Whoosh! Shoo! The two figures, one in front and one behind, were chasing each other nonstop. The two of them were like hunters and prey, quickly shuttling through the forest. If it was only in terms of speed, Chu Hen more or less had an advantage. However, what made him helpless was that Izhou could control the shadows of anything in the forest. Trees, vines, and even the shadows of some demonic beast could be turned into means of attack and restraint. If it was a head-on confrontation, Chu Hen would not be afraid. However, his opponent liked to play hide-and-seek and had no intention of stopping to fight head-on with Chu Hen. Xiao, xiao, xiao. Chu Hen flew on his sword and chased after his opponent through the dense forest and steep mountain streams. Under the interference of the shadow attack, the distance between the two of them slowly and steadily increased. Although Chu Hen did not know his opponent's intentions, he was certain that this person called Izhou was definitely stronger than Yang Zhongxiao of the Five Elements clan. What was his opponent's goal? What would happen if he continued to chase? For the time being, he did not know. However, Chu Hen also had a reason to continue chasing. Apart from moving cautiously, he could only continue to follow. After crossing a mountain stream in the depths of the forest, a majestic and perilous peak appeared in front of him. After continuously bypassing the many perilous peaks, they encountered a river that obstructed their flow. The stars moved, the sun and the moon rotated. Unknowingly, the two of them, one in front and one behind, had already been chasing for an entire day. On the second day, Chu Hen could barely find Izhou's figure. He could only faintly sense a faint and indistinct aura. At the edge of the cliff, behind him was a bottomless cliff. In front of him was a huge canyon with many peaks sticking their heads out. Chu Hen stood at the edge of the cliff, his eyes closed and motionless. The cold wind that blew against his face caused his clothes to flutter back and forth. After a while, Chu Hen slowly opened his eyes. His eyes revealed a profound look. Just now, he could no longer sense Izhou's aura. "Can you find his location?" After a moment of contemplation, Chu Hen asked softly. Buzz. A slight aura fluctuation came from his purple palace. Then, the sacred winged heavenly flame, Sparrow, Mo, Qingli's voice rang in his ears. "I can't sense him for the time being." "Oh." Chu Hen was a little surprised. "Even you can't find him?" "Yes, that person is quite capable. His aura is completely gone. I'm guessing that he's hiding in a shadowy place." "A shadowy place?" Chu Hen's eyes flickered slightly. His gaze swept across the vast and majestic canyon in front of him. After a moment of hesitation, Chu Hen jumped down and flew towards the depths of the canyon like a gliding eagle. How much has your cultivation recovered? While moving, Chu Hen asked. Mo Qingli was a little surprised at the sudden question. After a pause, she replied, I'm still quite far from my peak. Chu Hen did not speak again. He could vaguely feel that after entering the chaos demon domain, Mo Qingli seemed to be a little more cautious than before. This also meant that the opponents they encountered along the way were getting stronger and stronger. There was no doubt that the road ahead would become more and more difficult. Advancing all the way to the depths of the canyon, Chu Hen soon entered the depths. Around the canyon, it was quiet. In the distance, he could vaguely see the bones of some large demonic beasts. There's movement in the southwest, Mo Qingli suddenly said. Southwest. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows. He immediately rolled up a whirlwind and flew in that direction. Over a slope, an ancient battlefield appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. The ground was littered with broken halberds, broken swords, battle robes, and armors. The desolate atmosphere of the past blew against his face. There was an indescribable sense of solemnity in the wind. Almost all the corpses had turned into residue and merged into the soil. Only a few of the corpses were vaguely left. Compared to the corpses that had turned into dust, the weapons that were scattered on the ground were still as sharp as before. In particular, there were a few weapons that were still quite intact. The mottled rust could not hide the dazzling cold light of the past. Suddenly, Chu Hen's gaze shifted to a skeleton with a more complete figure. The skeleton was wearing battle armor. It had been dead for countless years, but it was still standing straight on the ground. It gave people the feeling that it must have been a strong cultivator when it was alive. In its withered left hand was a 3-meter-long cold spear. The cold spear's blade was pointed up, and it was also standing straight on the ground. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He stared coldly at the long spear. Found you. As his voice fell, Chu Hen waved his sleeve. A sharp dark green light burst out from his palm. Zung! The blue Ran sword tore through the air. It swept up a biting, cold, murderous aura as it flew towards the location of the skeleton. Then it accurately hit the long spear. Bang! A crisp sound rang out. The cold spear that had been around for a long time immediately broke into two. At the same time, the blue Ran sword suddenly pierced through a black shadow. Hiss! Chapter 13:17. Whoosh! A fierce sword hum accompanied by a powerful ripple of sword energy surged out, and the blue Ran sword directly nailed a black shadow firmly to the rock wall at the back of the slope. You can really dodge. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly, and a disdainful arc appeared. Immediately after, his figure flashed forward, and he quickly passed through the ancient battlefield. However, at this moment, Chu Hen unexpectedly discovered that the black shadow actually showed an irregular and strange state of distortion. The distorted shadow was like an ancient vine tentacle, wrapping around the blade of the blue Ran sword from top to bottom. Subsequently, a layer of gloomy and icy cold flame markings suddenly rose on the surface of the blue Ran sword, and within the flame markings were hidden ancient and complicated mysterious runes. What's going on? Chu Hen was obviously startled. He couldn't help but discover that the aura emitted by this black shadow seemed to be different from the aura of Izhou. Immediately after, the blue Ran sword that was enveloped by the gloomy flame markings trembled uneasily. The body of the sword shook violently, as if it had fallen into a deep quagmire and fallen into the mouth of a tiger. What surprised Chu Hen even more was that he clearly felt the power of the blue Ran sword was swiftly being plundered and devoured, and the originally sharp and fierce body of the sword was also dimming at a speed visible to the naked eye. This is... Amidst his shock, Chu Hen didn't say a word and hurriedly flashed to the front of the black shadow. He stretched out one hand like an eagle's claw, and a gorgeous purple electric arc immediately darted between his palm and arm. The extremely powerful purple electric arc had a penetrating power, and its sharp momentum was like the simultaneous cry of countless thunderbirds. However, In the instant that the indestructible purple lightning touched the black shadow, an earth-shattering explosion resounded from within. In an instant, the flame markings that covered the blue ran sword soared into the sky and became extremely powerful. Along with the black flame that soared into the sky, a cyclone comparable to a storm swept out in all directions. Chu-Hen suddenly felt an incomparably ferocious force surging through his arm. The instant he was blasted back, even the purple lightning around him was firmly suppressed. It was not Ijo. He was suddenly enlightened. Chu-Hen was both shocked and suspicious. He was extremely stunned. The frenzied black flame aura was like the monstrous demonic barrier that was rising and overlapping. The wind was biting cold, and the airwaves rolled. Without waiting for Chu-Hen to come up with another countermeasure, the blue sky sword that was trapped within unexpectedly disintegrated. Like a shattered crystal, it turned into densely packed green specks of light and was drawn into the black shadow. Blue Ran sword? Looking at this scene, Chu-Hen was instantly dumbfounded, and his mind couldn't help but be a little confused. He could no longer sense the slightest fluctuation of energy from the blue Ran sword. The jade Ran sword that had followed him for so many years was actually swallowed by his opponent. Just like that? Who? Immediately after, the black shadow swept up a strong cold wind and rushed into the sky. Like a magic barrier, it circled in the sky and quickly jumped into a lush forest. Chu-Hen clenched his fists and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Bastard! Spit out the jade Ran sword for me. After saying that, without the slightest hesitation, Chu-Hen immediately chased after him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The frantic chase took place once again, but this time, Chu-Hen's target wasn't the Hanyan sexy Joe. What is that thing? Chu-Hen asked in a low voice. I'm not too sure. There are too few creatures that can swallow weapons, so I can't confirm its identity, Mo Qingli replied. Can you still get the blue Ran sword back? It's hard to say. Hearing this, Chu-Hen couldn't help but frown even deeper. Although the blue Ran sword was only a saint artifact and was far from being able to keep up with the pace of the Sacred War, it was still the token of the sect master of Mount Kunliu, Gong Yangyu, who had given him. In addition, only the blue Ran sword could display the full power of the single sword flying immortal technique. So unless it was absolutely necessary, Chu-Hen wouldn't give up on the blue Ran sword. In a lush forest, the towering trees were like huge umbrellas. The black shadow was like a demon hidden in the fog, dragging a chaotic cyclone behind it as it flew through the forest at high speed. Although Chu-Hen was moving extremely fast, he couldn't close the distance between them, let alone observe their appearance. Can you stop it? Chu-Hen asked in a low voice. Yes. Screech. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud bird's cry resounded through the forest. Then, a colorful divine light burst out of Chu-Hen's body, and a pair of dazzling shadow wings rushed out from his chest. The bright light stunned the entire forest. The dazzling shadow wings spread out on both sides, accompanied by tens of thousands of shadows, and the shadow of a divine bird, a phoenix, directly pounced toward the black fog. As it moved, the sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow's body quickly solidified, setting off a blazing scarlet flame. It quickly approached the black shadow and flapped its wings. Balls of gorgeous flames fell from the sky like a meteor shower. Boom! Bang! The earth quaked, the mountains shook, and the grass and trees were flattened. The area within a radius of more than 10 kilometers was instantly turned into a sea of fire, and huge craters spread and exploded one after another. Under such a fierce attack, the Black Shadow's movement speed clearly slowed down. The corners of Chu-Hen's eyes turned cold, and he leaped into the air, increasing his speed by several times. At the same time as he rapidly approached the target, Chu-Hen raised his hand and flipped it over. A bunch of bright and beautiful silver starlight glittered in the sky. Shing! A light and crisp sound rang out, and a war blade radiating with silver light fell into his hand. T&I saber. The sharp blade, was like the holy radiance of the bright moon that stunned the sky. Chu-Hen held the saber's hilt with both hands and raised it above his head. Along with the dazzling silver light, a beam of shocking saber light that was more than 300 meters long pierced through the sky. At the same time, a majestic and ferocious white, saber-toothed tiger phantom suddenly appeared behind Chu-Hen. "Stop!" Space trembled in all directions. Chu-Hen held the saber with both hands and slashed down with mountain-splitting momentum. The incomparably sharp saber light directly slashed at the black shadow in front of him. Just as the destructive blow from the TNI saber was about to reach him, the black shadow also set off a majestic momentum that soared into the sky. The whirlpool-like black storm rapidly expanded, and a spiral of black air waves swept out. In the center of the biting cold storm, a pair of scarlet gold eyes hidden in the black shadow appeared. "This is?" Chu-Hen was shocked. Before he could release the power of his demon eyes to observe, the black shadow directly opened its mouth. The abyss-like mouth was bottomless, like a nebula black hole in the vast universe. In an instant, an invisible shock wave erupted from the black shadow's mouth. Bang! An incomparably violent explosion rang out. The powerful saber radiance that was descending was forcefully shattered into thousands of pieces less than 5 meters away from the opponent. The vast and mighty chaotic aftermath surged towards both sides. The black cyclone that hid the sky and covered the earth crushed out, directly enveloping Chu-Hen within it. The sudden change caused Chu-Hen to be more or less caught off guard. Before he could react, Chu-Hen suddenly felt the arm holding the TNI saber tighten. When he focused, he saw black light patterns firmly wrapped around his arm. Then, countless light patterns quickly wrapped around the TNI saber. Chu-Hen's 5 fingers loosened, and the weapon in his hand flew out. Swoosh! The TNI saber drew a silver streak in the air like a meteor, then flew straight into the black shadow and fell into the huge mouth of the unknown monster. Chu-Hen was dumbfounded once again. Even the TNI saber and the draining spirit spear were gone. The eyes of the unknown monster, which had swallowed the TNI saber, glowed with a strange white light. A strange, ancient bell sound seemed to echo between heaven and earth. The white light was like a rising tide, crashing toward Chu-Hen. Chu-Hen, who couldn't dodge in time, was directly hit by the white light. The next moment, he felt his body go numb, and the blood in his body seemed to freeze. At the same time, Chu-Hen's limbs started to petrify at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chu-Hen's pupils shrank, and he was even more alarmed. What the hell is this thing? Meanwhile, the monster once again hid in the thick black fog, sweeping up a gust of wind as it broke through the heavy sea of fire and burrowed into the depths of the forest behind. "Are you okay?" The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow immediately returned to Chu-Hen's side to check on his condition. "Don't worry about me," Chu-Hen hurriedly called out. "Don't let it escape. But you? You go first. I'll catch up later." Chapter 13:18. Rumble. A howling, chaotic air current swept across the sky above the forest. The sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow dragged a beautiful divine rainbow behind it as it chased after the mysterious black shadow, disappearing into the sky above the dark forest in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Chu-Hen's entire body seemed to have been shackled. Everything below his chest had turned into stone. Moreover, the range of the petrification continued to spread above his chest. A great sense of suffocation surged towards him from all directions. What shocking power! Chu-Hen's eyebrows lightly wrinkled. He clenched his teeth, and a demonic purple light suddenly burst forth from his eyes. Demon, along with a dark shout, an uncontrollable and terrifying aura of his bloodline poured out like a flood. Bang! With a muffled sound, a purple ring of light swept out towards the surroundings. A layer of white chi pattern subsequently collapsed and shattered. Evil and ice-cold purple demonic flames rose and stacked around Chu-Hen's body. The parts of his body that were petrified immediately faded away. A solemn look appeared on Chu Hen's face. Without any hesitation, he stepped into the air and flew towards the deep forest ahead. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The dark and damp forest was mixed with the smell of mud. Chu Hen was like a dragonfly touching water. He tapped lightly on the branches of the trees with the tips of his feet to complete a continuous acceleration. Not a single leaf touched his body. Only a wisp of afterimage could be seen in the air. Suddenly, a few unfamiliar auras came from Chu Hen's left. Chu Hen paused slightly. He saw that the auras didn't have much movement. They must be from other sects and powers passing by. Just as expected, those people unhurriedly passed in front of Chu Hen. They did not seem to have any intention of stopping. Through the gaps between the trees, Chu Hen roughly scanned the few figures. They didn't seem to have discovered his existence. The few people casually chatted as they moved forward without any precaution. Junior brother Xiahao, I heard that you were an emperor in the past. You were worshipped by tens of thousands of people every day. Senior brother Li, please don't tease me. I don't want to talk about the past anymore. Hee, it seems to be true. Speaking of which, where was the place where you were the emperor before? If I can't survive in the Midland one day, I will also find a place to be a local tyrant. It was supposed to be a very ordinary conversation. Just as Chu Hen was about to continue moving forward, a few faint words passed through the distant forest into Chu Hen's ears. The Eastern Continent, a very remote place. Eastern Continent? Hearing this name, Chu Hen could not help but feel quite surprised. He had never thought that he would meet someone from the Eastern Continent here. However, the Midland was vast and boundless, and the Midland was the #1 holy land of martial arts. Therefore, it wasn't strange for people from other continents to come here. Sensing the aura left behind by the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow to guide him, Chu Hen continued traversing the forest. But for some reason, the conversation of those people just now kept lingering in Chu Hen's ears. Somehow, he felt that something was wrong. Eastern Continent? Emperor? What exactly attracted his attention? Junior brother Xia, how? Chu Hen murmured to himself in a low voice, recalling the name of that person. Xia Hao, Huangfu Hao. Boom! All of a sudden, Chu Hen felt as if a thunderbolt had exploded in his head. He suddenly stopped moving. His trembling eyes slowly swept in the direction where those people had disappeared. Was it Xia Qing's younger brother? The emperor of the Sacred Star dynasty that he had destroyed with his own hands. Huangfu Hao? Huangfu was Xia Qing's royal family name. Chu Hen felt as if a great wave had been raised in his heart. He suddenly thought of the familiar figure he had accidentally seen in the crowd of people in the 10,000-bell city. Was it really her that I saw that day? She came to the Midland? A series of guesses and questions intertwined like a cobweb, circling around Chu Hen's heart, making it hard for him to breathe. There was only one way to prove his guesses. Chu Hen clenched his fists. A touch of determination flashed in his eyes. He immediately turned around and chased in the direction where those people had disappeared. When the blood that had rushed to his brain gradually subsided, the scenes of the past kept appearing in his mind. One was the royal princess and regent of the dynasty. The other was a defector who had been chased all over the city. On the day when he had bathed the capital with the flame of revenge, the relationship between the two seemed to have reached the breaking point. Could it be her? Chu Hen's heart was full of doubts. If it was her, what kind of identity should he stand in front of her? Contradiction, anxiety, and even a little fear, all kinds of complex emotions constantly attacked Chu Hen's heartstrings, making it difficult for him to calm down. Even so, Chu Hen didn't stop. Instead, he walked faster and faster. Perhaps just looking at her from afar was enough. The bright light drove away the drowsiness and darkness. Very soon, Chu Hen walked out of the forest, followed by a chaotic power riot and a piercingly cold, murderous aura spreading in front of him. Ha! The soul-refining palace will definitely get this key. Even if the god of heaven is here, stand aside for me, Shuehan. A powerful aura that made one's heart palpitate rose in the vast valley. There were many ancient buildings in the valley. Bridges stretched across the sky, iron chains, and flying horses. Magnificent towers surrounded the central meditation platform. Looking from afar, the buildings in the valley were very grand. It was like an ancient city far away from the outside world. At this moment, there were about 200 to 300 people standing in the sky above the ancient city. A cold figure holding a scythe stood on the Zen platform in the middle, looking down on everyone. The sharp scythe was still dripping with fresh blood, and there were already 20 to 30 people lying in a pool of blood under his feet. Almost all of them were killed in one hit. Everyone's throat was slit, and the way they died was especially horrifying. This, as expected of the hunter-reaper Shui Han, his methods are really ruthless. The existence ranked 44th on the leaderboard is really powerful. What do we do? Prepare to retreat? Don't rush. The Soul Refining Palace doesn't have the advantage in numbers. We'll act according to the situation. Everyone's eyes were wandering, and they were slightly hesitant. The young man holding the scythe had a pale and skinny face. In his other hand, he held a cubic crystal core. The crystal core glowed with a mysterious charm. Without a doubt, it was the key. Ha! Looks like all of you are planning to fish in troubled waters? A strange cold smile appeared on the man's face. Xing! He lifted the scythe in his hand lightly, moved the blade to his mouth, and licked the blood on it with his slender tongue. His pale lips instantly turned as red as a vampire's. If that's the case, I'm happy to accept your souls, Xiao. With that, the man waved the scythe in his hand, and a dazzling blood-red arc flashed across the sky. Wong! There was a tremor in the air, and the corpses lying around the scythe started to emit rays of demonic dark light. All of the overflowing light flowed into the scythe like streams flowing into a river. Arg! A chilly wind blew, and the sky dimmed. Waves of mournful wails resounded in everyone's ears. Under everyone's shocked gaze, the corpses that were already dead quickly shriveled up, as if their flesh and blood were sucked dry. In an instant, they became hideous and horrifying dried corpses. At the same time, the scythe in the man's hand let out a strong hum. The originally scarlet scythe was also covered with a layer of grayish-black cold light. A demonic aura rose from the man's body, and he laughed in satisfaction. The souls this time are delicious. Ha! The wind howled, and dark clouds filled the sky. The grayish cyclone covered the sky, and all sorts of mournful wails and howls made people's scalps go numb. Chapter 13:19. Arg! Ghosts wailed and wolves howled. The wind howled. A gray cyclone swept across the sky above the meditation platform, and a dark and cold murderous aura invaded the area. In the Soul Refining Palace, the cold-looking man, named Shui Han, was like the Grim Reaper that could take away one's soul. The scythe with a ghost head in his hand was glowing with a layer of gloomy, cold light. Black mist rose into the air as if a demon was gathering. Those who are not afraid of death, come on. Everyone's expressions changed, and many revealed expressions of fear. However, there were also quite a number of people whose eyes revealed traces of ruthlessness. No matter how powerful you are, you won't be able to defeat us. Everyone who sees the secret key has a share. How can you keep it to yourself? That's right. So what if he's a genius on a ranking list? There are so many of us. Why should we be afraid of him? Everyone, let's attack together. Kill. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. Unwilling to let the matter rest, the crowd unleashed a ferocious and powerful aura towards Shui Han, who was in the middle. Waves of palm energy pressed down like a mountain. Sword radiance flashed, and saber radiance split the sky. The magnificent battle skills were like interweaving rainbows, stunning the sky. I like people who don't care about their lives. Shui Han smiled coldly. He held the scythe with a ghost head in one hand, leaned forward, and swung the cold scythe. Swoosh! A blood-red scythe shadow with black light swept across the sky. The cold aura of death penetrated deep into the bones. The sharp sound of flesh being cut open was mixed with a series of shrill cries. 7 to 8 people who were charging at him had their chests split open, and warm blood sprayed a few meters high like a fountain. Hee fun, right? Enjoy the sound of blood dancing in the wind. Along with the eerie laughter, another blood-colored sickle shadow crossed in the shape of a cross. Those people didn't even have time to escape. In endless horror, their bodies were directly cut in half at the waist. You? Bastard. Kill him. The crowd was shocked and angry. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they attacked with all kinds of power. The mixed power was like a violent gale, blasting towards Shui Han, who was on the meditation platform. Boom! The terrifying power was concentrated and crushed. The majestic force could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. The huge Zen platform instantly collapsed, and half of it collapsed. The violent shockwave instantly engulfed Shui Han. Die. Looks like he's only SOSO. Everyone's faces lit up with joy, and they all heaved a sigh of relief. But in the next second, everyone heard a strange laughter that made their scalps go numb. Hey, caught you guys what? The hearts of everyone present trembled violently. In an instant, the dozen or so people who had launched the attack suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill behind them. Without any time to react, a blurry shadow holding a sickle appeared behind them, just like the Grim Reaper from hell. These phantoms were formless, but they exuded a thick aura of death. Behind you. Be careful. Along with the anxious cries of the others, a series of interweaving sharp sounds overlapped almost at the same time. A dazzling crescent light streaked across the sky, followed by slender arrows of blood spraying high into the sky. Then, more than 10 people's round heads were sent flying at the same time. The scene that impacted everyone's vision seemed to have stopped. Their expressions of extreme fear were frozen on their faces. Blood rained down from the sky, and horrifying corpses fell from the sky, quickly dyeing the ancient city buildings red. At the same time, the illusory Grim Reaper phantoms turned into clouds of smoke and merged into one. Their limbs turned solid, and Shui Han's cold and pale face appeared from the smoke. Good show. The chaos caused by the massacre started to break out. Shui Han's cruel methods were terrifying. To him, killing people was a form of enjoyment. One could see the excitement in his eyes. If it was anyone else, they would be terrified of it. At this moment, Chu Hen, who was not involved in the battle, quietly watched the bloody battle in front of him. He was not here for the secret key. His emotions weren't affected much by the massacre that was happening before his eyes. I have killed 93 people today. Why don't I make it 100? Shui Han's gaze swept across the crowd, who were already scared out of their wits. When he said he wanted to make it 100, the surrounding crowd could not help but shudder. All of them retreated with the intention of retreating. Don't run. I will kill whoever dares to run first. As soon as he said that, the crowd's face turned pale, and none of them dared to move. Shui Han stood in the sky like a tyrant who had the power to kill. He looked at the crowd in a mocking manner. However, at this moment, a few young figures walked out from the crowd behind him. Compared to the others who were in a state of fear, these few people were especially calm and could even be said to be rather relaxed. They walked slowly from a metal chain bridge to the side of the high platform in the middle and looked up at Shui Han. Senior brother Shui Han, is as ruthless as the rumors say. We are impressed. The sudden appearance of a bird that stood out surprised everyone present. The one who spoke was a young man with a gentle smile. He touched his nose and smiled at the other party. Shui Han frowned slightly. He was a little surprised. Tell me your name? It's just a lowly name. It's not worth mentioning. I'm a nobody, Spirit Phoenix Valley, Tang Siwao. The crowd was shocked again and again. They were all in awe. However, they were not afraid of this young man called Tang Si, but the 3 words Spirit Phoenix Valley. Among all the sects and forces in the Midland, the Spirit Phoenix Valley was definitely one of the top. At this moment, Chu Hen, who was hiding outside of the battlefield, was faintly trembling. His attention was fixed on a tall figure behind Tang Si. It was a young man who was in his early 20s. He looked younger than any of the people present. His handsome face revealed an innate, noble aura. Chu Hen clenched his fists. He was restless again, Huang Fu, how thousands of thoughts intertwined his heart like a spider web. Chu Hen let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, he stopped doubting. Even though that person's figure and appearance were more mature than before, Chu Hen was still able to determine with a single glance that he was the ruler of the fallen Sacred Star Empire, Huang Fu Hao. Since Huang Fu Hao was here, Huang Fu Qing must be here too. Chapter 1320. I'm a nobody from the Spirit Phoenix Valley. Tang Se, Spirit Phoenix Valley. Shuihan's expression softened when he heard those 3 words. He raised his eyebrows, and the murderous aura he exuded gradually subsided. So you're a disciple of the Spirit Phoenix Valley. Apologies, Shuihan replied. Senior brother Shuihan is too courteous. Can you give me some face and call it a day? Of course. Although both parties did not have any relationship, the 3 words Spirit Phoenix Valley was enough to make people fearful. Since junior brother Tang Si has spoken, I will let these people go today. Everyone felt relieved when they heard that. It was as though they saw the light of hope in the dark night. Thank you, senior brother Shuihan, for being merciful. Tang Si smiled. You're welcome. Shuihan put down the scythe in his hand and said, Today's matter shall end here. I'll take my leave first. Wait. Just as Shuihan was about to leave, Tang Si raised his hand and called out to him. Shuihan was confused. Is there anything else? Tang Si sniffled and raised his hand. He smiled faintly and said, Senior brother Shuihan, please hand me the key in your hand before you leave. Wow. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere that was slightly relaxed just now became cold in an instant. Everyone looked at Tang Si and the others with unease. Ha! Shuihan laughed as he glanced at Tang Si's peaceful smile. However, his smile was a little cold. His ice-cold eyes were filled with murderous intent, and the scythe in his hand glowed with a demonic blood-red light again. What did you say just now? I didn't hear you clearly. However, Tang Si was still smiling. He did not care about the threatening aura that Shuihan emitted. Senior brother Shuihan didn't hear me clearly? I'll repeat myself. Before you leave, please hand over the key. Bang! Before Tang Si could finish his sentence, an extremely sharp crescent-shaped blood-red arc blade pierced through the air and landed heavily on the platform below. The rubble exploded rapidly. A huge crack that ran from the north to the south immediately appeared at the feet of Tang Si and the others. Immediately after, a bloodthirsty aura that was comparable to that of a ferocious beast once again enveloped the sky above everyone's head. Shuihan's body was surrounded by a fiery demonic barrier. A cold smile appeared on his face, and his killing intent spread out like a wave. I take back what I said just now. You guys can make up the 100 people. Everyone's faces suddenly turned pale, and they subconsciously retreated. There were also people who looked at the scene in front of them meaningfully. Tang Si's current performance was a little too calm. Why bother? Senior Shuihan, it's impossible for you to take something that you can't take away, so there's no point in trying to force it, Tang Si said with a smile. Hey, save these words for the King of Hell. Wow. The sudden cold wind was like the roar of a ferocious ghost. Shuihan's entire body emitted a dazzling bloody light. Who? The powerful aura crushed towards Tang Si and the rest below. A series of blurry shadows wielding sickles swept down from the sky. Rays of cold light interweaved and stacked together. The shadows of the sickles were like frost, showing the power to take lives. Everyone present had witnessed Shuihan's methods clearly. At this moment, they seemed to be able to see the miserable ending of Tang Si and the rest with their heads separated from their bodies. All of you die. In an instant, a ghostly shadow wielding a scythe with a ghost head appeared behind Tang Si and the rest. The cold, sharp blades sliced through the air and headed straight for their heads. At this critical moment, a black whirlpool appeared beneath Tang Si and the rest without any warning. The black whirlpool swept out like a storm, corroding all directions. From the whirlpool, strong black tentacles extended out. Every tentacle seemed to be a product of the abyss. Bang! An incomparably ferocious force surged out from within, and deep cracks spread all over the high platform. All the blurry shadows wielding sickles exploded into clouds of smoke. Bang! Following that, a slightly disheveled figure quickly retreated and landed on the platform. The sickle in his hand dragged a deep mark of more than 10 meters on the ground before he could stop. Dark energy, Shuehan, who was pale, frowned. Beads of sweat dripped down from his forehead as he scanned his surroundings with unease. At the same time, the rest of the people around him were also shocked. They were shocked and suspicious. Was it the dark energy just now? Could it be that even he is here? All sorts of commotion spread through the crowd. Tang Ci and the rest who were unscathed still had a relaxed smile on their faces. However, there was a hint of playfulness in their eyes when they looked at Shuehan. I forgot to tell you. Tang Ci took a few steps forward and looked at Shuehan. He raised his finger and pointed to the sky. That person is here too. Shuehan's expression turned gloomy as he shouted in a deep voice, "Where is he?" Tang Ci crossed his arms in front of him and stroked his chin. It's hard to say. Anyway, it's quite far away. You could try and see if you can escape. Shuehan clenched his fist tightly. His gaze was as sharp as the sickle in his hand. He gritted his teeth and let out a deep breath. Since the #1 genius of the Spirit Phoenix Valley is here, I, Shuehan, will admit defeat. I'll give you the key. After saying that, Shuehan raised his left hand and handed the cube crystal core to Tang Ci. Tang Ci smiled. Thank you, senior brother Shuehan. Then, Tang Ci walked forward and took the key from Shuehan's hand unhurriedly. However, at this moment, Shuehan's eyes emitted a ruthless cold light. The sickle that was glowing with a blood-red light directly slashed out and slashed at Tang Ci and the rest. Scram, whoosh! The ghost-headed sickle let out a soft cry of death. A giant sickle shadow slashed out and the stage cracked. Tang Ci and the rest's expressions changed slightly as they immediately dodged to the side. The aftermath of the frenzied shockwave swept out, causing the surrounding people to be pushed back. Shuehan sneered coldly. Then, he leaped up and turned into a shadow as he fled into the void. However, at this moment, in the sky above the 9 heavens, a thunderstorm stacked up. Earth-shaking black waves stirred up the sky. Then, a majestic force that was comparable to a mountain came crashing down. In the sky above the ancient city, an ancient array that was glowing with a dark aura suddenly appeared. Light patterns intertwined and were dazzling. Buzzed, the heaven and earth suddenly trembled. In the center of the talisman array, a black light pillar that looked like it could annihilate the world fell. The boundless might of the heavens shook everyone's heartstrings. Shuehan, who had not escaped in time, had a drastic change in his expression. An unprecedented fear filled his entire face. No. As his voice fell, the black light pillar that pierced through the sky directly hit Shuehan's body, just like the divine light that split the sky. Bang! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and a violent shockwave exploded in the sky above the ancient city. The waves that swept through the surroundings roared. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Shuehan's body, which was ranked on the wind cloud ranking, exploded into pieces that filled the sky. This scene made everyone's scalp go numb. Chapter 13:21. Bang! Heaven and earth shook as airwaves surged. A violent shock wave swept across the sky, and a huge pit appeared in the center of the ancient city below. The ground cracked, and many buildings were razed to the ground. The extremely terrifying dark energy was like a vast and mighty wave that was recklessly released. It rushed in all directions, and its destructive power caused everyone's scalp to go numb. Oh my God! Just a moment ago, the Soul Refining Palace's genius, Shuehan, who was known as the Life Hunting Reaper, was killing everyone and making everyone tremble in fear. In the blink of an eye, he was killed on the spot. This kind of shock, whether visually or psychologically, brought about an unprecedented great impact to everyone, killing a genius on the wind cloud list in one move. The only person who could do that was another powerhouse on the list. Everyone's gazes trembled as they scanned their surroundings, trying to find the other party's existence. However, with a glance, they could not find any trace of that person. Where is he? There's no need to look for him. He's not here. It can be said that no one here has a sharper sense than me, but I can't find his location. Therefore, Tang Sai didn't lie. That person is at least 100 miles away. 100 miles away? Oh my God, is that true? Yes, he must have used some kind of secret skill to cross space. Gasp! The crowd couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Killing Shui Han in one move from a distance of 100 miles, such a domineering method, could be said to be terrifying. The destructive power of the dark energy was like a typhoon that swept across, destroying the ancient city. The flames that filled the air dissipated like dust, and a blood-red scythe with a ghost head and a colorful crystal core were scattered in the collapsed rubble below. Shui Han, who was bloodthirsty and like the god of death, was completely destroyed. Haha, why did you do that? Spirit Phoenix Valley's Tang Ci still had a calm smile on his face. However, there was a hint of playfulness between his brows. Immediately after, his palm condensed, and as a suction force was released, the key below first flew into his hand. He kept the key in his pocket with joy in his eyes. Subsequently, the scythe with a ghost's head left the ground and landed steadily in his palm. Since you're dead, I'll take this ghost scythe for you. Seeing this situation, the others couldn't help but feel sad for Shui Han. Originally, as long as he handed over the key, he could at least live. Not only did he lose his life, but even his weapon had fallen into someone else's hands. Let's go. Another disciple of the Spirit Phoenix Valley said with a relaxed expression. Tang Ci turned around, and the few of them smiled at each other. Then, they turned into streams of light and leaped into the sky. The Spirit Phoenix Valley's group had appeared halfway and had immediately intercepted and taken away the secret key. Although the rest of the people were longing for it, none of them dared to chase after them. After all, he had learned his lesson just now. Let's retreat. Don't even think about things that have fallen into the hands of the Spirit Phoenix Valley. Let's try our luck elsewhere. Sigh. That person's cultivation is truly terrifying. We'd better stay away from him. Swish, swish, swish. The rapid, wind-breaking momentum flashed across the sky above the mountains. At this moment, Tang Ci and his group could be said to be flushed with success. I didn't expect to get a key so easily. I thought the fight would be more intense. A Spirit Phoenix Valley disciple said happily. Apart from that, I would like to congratulate Senior Brother Tang Ci for obtaining the Ghost Scythe Bloodblade. Haha, that's right. The Ghost Scythe Bloodblade has drunk a lot of blood in the hands of that ruthless Shui Han. After so many years, its quality has probably reached the level of a ranked divine weapon. Senior Brother Tang Ci has really picked up a bargain this time. Hearing the few people's flattery, Tang Ci's eyes glowed brightly. Junior Brother Xia, how? Why aren't you saying anything? What's the matter? Tang Ci turned to the side and asked the tall young man beside him. Although the other party's figure was relatively sturdy and his appearance was rather heroic, his aura was obviously weaker than a few of them. Xiahao frowned slightly and gently bit the corner of his lips. Nothing much. I'm just a little uneasy. Uneasy? The few of them laughed disapprovingly. Ha! I'm afraid Junior Brother Xiahao hasn't seen such a bloody scene before. It's a little unsuitable, right? Junior Brother Xiahao is still young. It's inevitable that he would be afraid when encountering such a situation. Although Xiaohao's cultivation was not high, the few of them took good care of him. There was not much meaning in their words to tease him. Of course, Xiaohao also understood the reason behind it. He nodded, smiled, and did not say anything else. Someone's catching up. Suddenly, a person said in a low voice. The few of them were slightly astonished and could not help but be slightly surprised. He even dares to chase like this. Is he tired of living? It's actually only one person. He's quite daring. The aura that was approaching from afar became clearer and clearer. A black dot in the sky behind them was enlarging at a speed visible to the naked eye. A blurry silhouette gradually appeared. It was very obvious that the other party did not conceal his whereabouts. It was as if he was telling them that he was here to look for them. The figure got closer and closer, and the blurry silhouette slowly became clearer and clearer. Just as the few of them were curious, Xiaohao's expression suddenly changed, and his handsome face became slightly pale. "It's him! How is this possible?" Tang Xi and the others could not help but be stunned. They all looked at the other party curiously. Junior brother Xiaohao knows this person. However, Xiaohao's entire body was trembling inexplicably. He clenched his fists so tightly that the veins on the back of his hands bulged. Looking at the figure that was becoming more and more obvious from afar, there seemed to be 1,000 layers of huge waves stacked up in his heart. Even if he did not see this person for the rest of his life, he would definitely not forget his existence. It's really him. He actually came to the Midland. Why is he here? Could it be that he has already recognized me? A series of questions instantly surged in Xiaohao's heart. His expression was full of complexity, and there was only one thought left in his mind. "Sister, you must not let him see you." Xiaohao clenched his fists, and a trace of determination flashed across his eyes. He suddenly said to Tang Xi and the others, "Stop him. You must not let him see me. You must not." Although everyone was deeply puzzled by Xiaohao's words, they could see from his flustered expression that the other party was coming for Xiaohao. Tang Xi smiled indifferently. "No problem. You guys go first. I will stop him here." "Okay." Xiaohao nodded and took the lead to fly away without hesitation. Then he turned around and said, "But don't take his life." Tang Xi raised his eyebrows and said with a relaxed smile, "Don't worry." Immediately, the other few people left Tang Xi behind and followed behind Xiaohao at a leisurely pace. Why does senior brother Xiaohao look like he has seen a ghost? Who knows? It seems like he doesn't know anyone in the Midland. I'm more worried that senior brother Tang Xi won't be ruthless. Ha ha ha, let him be. Those who are chasing after our spirit Phoenix Valley should be prepared for the miserable consequences. Whoosh! Like a bolt of lightning, he swept through the air. The person who was chasing after him was undoubtedly Chu Hen. Since the other party was confirmed to be Huangfu Hao, it was enough to prove that Huangfu Qing was also here. "Friend, you can stop now." In the air above two precipitous cliffs, Tang Xi stood in the air and directly blocked Chu Hen's path. "I'm looking for someone," Chu Hen said anxiously as he looked at the group of people behind Tang Xi. Tang Xi crossed his arms in front of his chest and supported his chin with the other hand. He had a mocking smile on his face. "I know who you are looking for, but you can go back to where you came from." Chu Hen frowned and said in a deep voice, "I have something to ask him. I don't want to talk about anything else." "Hee, you don't want to talk, and I don't want to listen. I'll give you two choices. One is to leave or—" Tang Xi's smile suddenly became sharp, and a hint of disdain appeared in his eyes. "I'll send you off." The airflow between the two of them suddenly accelerated. Shing! A sharp blade let out a soft hum, and a scythe with a ghost head appeared in Tang Xi's hand. He said to himself as he gently stroked the blade with his finger, "This is a good weapon. The blood on it hasn't even dried yet." It was obvious that he was trying to intimidate her. However, Chu Hen smiled slightly and said, "Don't you think it's bad luck to hold something that has been used by a dead person?" Tang Xi's eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp, cold light as he paused. Noisy. After he finished speaking, the scythe in Tang Xi's hand suddenly exploded with a dense bloody light. At the same time, a strange black shadow wrapped around the blade. People who don't understand the situation and talk too much die early. It just so happens that you have both, raising a biting cold gale. Tang Xi waved the ghost scythe blood blade in his hand towards Chu Hen. Wah! Between the heavens and the earth, waves of ghostly howls rang out. The swirling cyclone was as bone-piercing as a knife. In the instant it fell towards Chu Hen, the ghost scythe transformed into a blood-colored scythe that was tens of meters wide. Dazzling illusions danced about. This blade emitted a destructive might that could tear apart everything. A dense aura of death shrouded Chu Hen inside and outside. The huge bloody scythe slashed through the air, aiming to take Chu Hen's life. Bang! In an instant, a violent explosion exploded in the sky. The wind and clouds changed, and a bloody mist covered the sky. A circle of red chi spread out in all directions. The mountains below trembled in unison. The smile on Tang Xi's face suddenly froze. He frowned and stared in front of him in disbelief. Amidst the chaotic blood mist, a figure flashing with purple lightning stood unwaveringly. His handsome face was filled with disdain. "You? Who are you?" Tang Xi held the scythe in his hand and shouted in a deep voice. "Martial arts ancestor, Chu Hen." As his voice fell, countless bolts of purple lightning intertwined and pounced towards Tang Xi like lightning pythons leaping in the air. The latter's pupils rapidly contracted, and his eyes reflected the raging, domineering, and resplendent purple light. Boom! The earth shook, and the sky changed color. Thousands of thunderbolts swept through the void, and the heavy sound instantly spread for hundreds of miles. What was going on? The people from Spirit Phoenix Valley, who had left first, were shocked by the shocking aura and turned around to look. Before they could react to what had happened, a wretched figure rapidly fell from the sky and smashed in their direction. "That is Senior Tang Xi?" Rumble. Before he finished speaking, the battered figure smashed into the side wall of a mountain below like a small meteorite. Immediately, rocks collapsed and the rock wall split open. Huge cracks quickly spread across half of the mountain like a spider web. Tang Xi was deeply embedded in the rock wall. His clothes were tattered, and his body was covered in blood. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Immediately after, a red phantom that was spinning rapidly swept toward Tang Xi. Tang Xi's face changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with fear. No, Zong. A strong airflow swept past, and stone chips flew everywhere. A bloody scythe directly pierced into the rock wall on the left of Tang Xi. It was less than 5 centimeters away from his head. Just a little more, and his head would have exploded. It was like walking past the shoulder of the Grim Reaper. Tang Xi's face was pale, and his entire body trembled in fear. Chapter 1322. Senior Brother Tang Xi. The people from the Spirit Phoenix Valley turned pale with fright when they saw the battered figure smashed into the stone wall. Others might not know, but they were well aware of Tang Xi's cultivation base. Although he was not ranked on the excellence list, he definitely had the strength to challenge it. Therefore, when he said he wanted to stop the intruder, the few of them could not help but feel worried for the intruder. However, who would have thought that Tang Xi's head was almost split open by someone in the blink of an eye? "Let's go and help Senior Brother Tang Xi." The few of them did not even think, as they hurriedly turned around and dashed forward. After all, the secret key was with Tang Xi. No matter how strong the opponent was, they would not abandon him like that. Xia Hao, who was walking at the front, frowned as he looked at the people who had returned. He hesitated for a moment, but did not join them. Instead, he turned around and left in a hurry. "Who are you? Tell me your name." How dare you? Do you know that we are from the Spirit Phoenix Valley?" The few of them were shocked and furious as they dashed above the heavily injured Tang Xi. They stared angrily at the unfamiliar figure with an extraordinary bearing. "I want to see Huangfu Hao," Chu Hen replied coldly. "Huangfu Hao." The few of them looked at each other. After a moment of confusion, they quickly understood that the person he was referring to was Xia Hao. He doesn't want to see you," one of them shouted. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed as he continued. "Is Huangfu Qing with you? Tell her that I want to see her." "What Huangfu Hao or Huangfu Qing? Don't spout nonsense here. How dare you injure Senior Brother Tang Xi? I'll make you suffer the consequences. Don't talk nonsense with him. Let's get rid of him together. Go." After saying that, the infuriated crowd burst out a wave of powerful true inner force and attacked Chu Hen. Chu Hen frowned as he stretched out both of his palms. Magnificent purple lightning immediately flew out along his arms. TSK, TSK. The violent thunder and lightning were like a huge net that quickly spread out in the void. Extremely fierce attacks collided with the thunder and lightning that were rushing down. Clang! Boom! Strong and fierce forces constantly collided with each other. Only after exchanging blows did everyone realize that they had greatly underestimated Chu Hen's strength. The unstoppable thunderbolts whistled through the air, and wherever they went, their attacks crumbled one after another. Clumps of scattered airwaves exploded high up in the sky, and the few people who came to help were quickly knocked back and sent flying. Damn it! One of them had a ruthless glint in his eyes. His hands turned into golden blades as he glared at Chu Hen. You really don't know how to appreciate favors. I said, I want to see Huangfu how. Shut up. The man gritted his teeth and rushed to Chu Hen against the shocking thunderbolts. His palms that had turned into blades released a dazzling holy light. Then he leaped to the sky in front of Chu Hen and waved his palms to hit Chu Hen's head. However, the man didn't even touch Chu Hen's body. A thunderbolt fell diagonally from the sky, and thousands of lightning arcs flashed and sparks filled the sky. The man's momentum was sharply reduced, and he was blasted into the ground below by this thunderbolt. Ignoring the rest of the people whose expressions changed again and again, Chu Hen stepped on the air and continued to fly forward. Suddenly, just as Chu Hen walked out a few steps, the entire sky suddenly darkened. An undercurrent of strong wind that was as turbulent as a tide swept over. Chu Hen was shocked. Then, an extremely shocking dark aura covered the sky and covered the earth. Buzz, the space faintly trembled, and the invisible pressure was like carrying a mountain. Black cyclones appeared between the heavens and the earth. Accompanied by a frightening rhythm, the cyclones quickly merged together and turned into a slender human figure. In an instant, the airflow in the area within a radius of more than 100 miles accelerated. Everything in the world seemed to be overshadowed. St. King realm. Chu Hen's complexion changed. The figure that gradually became clearer exuded a temperament like the sun, moon, and stars. Dressed in a black robe, his face was like jade, and he was handsome. No matter when, he would always be outstanding. The other party's body swayed with a trace of black light, and his eyes were unusually calm as he stared at Chu Hen in front of him. And behind his calm eyes, there seemed to be a hint of hidden coldness. Several Spirit Phoenix Valley disciples clenched their fists, and all of them revealed a look of surprise. Shao! However, before the few of them could speak, the man raised his right hand lightly, indicating that there was no need to say anything. Everyone looked at each other, did not say another word. They helped the heavily injured Tang Ci up from the rubble, and then turned around and left without looking back. Chu Hen did not look at the few people who left on their own. His gaze was solemn as he stared at the unfamiliar young man in front of him. For the powerful dark aura that the other party emitted, he could determine that this person was the other genius on the Wind Cloud list who killed the Life Hunter Reaper Shui Han with a single move. Strong, an absolute powerhouse. Even when Chu Hen stood in front of the other party, he felt a great sense of oppression. Was this the aura of a St. King realm powerhouse? Chu Hen was secretly shocked. He gently let out a sigh of relief and looked up. He said in a clear voice, I have no intention of becoming enemies with you. I just want to see someone. The man did not move, and he did not make a sound. He only looked at Chu Hen quietly. His eyes seemed to be considering, and it seemed to have a deeper meaning. Chu Hen continued, She's an old friend of mine. I don't know if she's with you. Her name is Huangfu. Siha. The other party laughed. The curve of his mouth had a kind of arrogance, as if he was looking down on everyone. I know who you're looking for. Chu Hen's eyes lit up. However, before he could get excited, the other party's indifferent voice sounded again. But she won't see you again. Why? Chu Hen frowned slightly. Haha, because you're not qualified. Not qualified. The sharp words were like a sharp awl that pierced the eardrums. Chu Hen's eyes faintly trembled. Both of them looked at each other. The other party's gaze was like a noble looking at a beggar by the roadside. It was filled with disdain and ridicule. I don't like to beat around the bush. For her sake, I won't pursue the matter of you injuring Tang Ci. So, you can leave now. Even though it was the most ordinary of words, Chu Hen could feel the undisguised disdain and humiliation from the other party's tone and gaze. An indescribable fire gradually spread through Chu Hen's blood. He lowered his voice and said in a deep voice, "Who are you to her? What right do you have to meddle in her affairs? You don't deserve to know who I am to her, and you don't deserve to ask me." The man looked straight at him, and there was a faint hint of arrogance in his eyes. He paused for a moment, then said in a playful manner, "Then go back to where you came from. I don't want to see you in front of me again." It was a mocking gesture and an irresistible command. It was as if in his eyes, Chu Hen did not even have the right to look at him face to face. This was a kind of extreme disdain and indifference. It was as if the fire of jealousy was constantly being stimulated. Chu Hen deeply inhaled a breath of air. His angular profile revealed a trace of darkness and sternness. "What if I say no?" Facing the other party's powerful aura, Chu Hen looked up slightly, and 2 rays of cold light shot out. The man smiled again. "What a surprising choice, but I like it very much. Hum." As soon as he finished speaking, the sky trembled violently. He clenched his fingers, and a vast and mighty wave of dark energy suddenly spread between heaven and earth. "Since you're an ant, you should live." An astonishingly majestic aura pressed down on Chu Hen. The man raised his hand and raised his palm. The black light that hid the sky and covered the earth swept towards Chu Hen, instantly transforming into a huge palm that blotted out the sky. In the face of this fiend god-like giant palm, Chu Hen frowned, but there was no fear in his eyes. Zap zap! The violent sound of thunder intertwined, and countless extremely sharp purple thunderbolts bloomed from Chu Hen's body like a giant net. Chu Hen put his palms together. An endless power of thunder suddenly rushed out, like thousands of rapidly moving dragons and snakes, facing the giant black palm. Bang! Boom! The 2 terrifying forces collided head-on, and suddenly the heaven and earth shook. The powerful dark palm force was like the hand of a fiend god reaching into the thunder tribulation. Chaotic shockwaves wreaked havoc in the sky. The shocking power of darkness crushed the purple thunderbolts, all the way to Chu Hen behind. Bang! The violent aftermath entered his body, and Chu Hen only felt his body tremble, and his internal organs churned. His blood and meridians were faintly swollen and numb. The impact that seeped into his body made Chu Hen a little unstable, and he subconsciously took a few steps back from the sky. Such a terrifying power. A casual palm actually had such godly power. It was really frightening. However, compared to Chu Hen's fear, the young man was also a little surprised. "You can actually take a palm of mine and not be defeated. I have underestimated you." The man slightly raised his eyebrows, and then immediately smiled mockingly and raised his left hand condescendingly. His 5 fingers spread out, and his palm faced Chu Hen. An astonishing rhythm of air spread out in the palm, and a rapidly expanding black energy body quickly condensed in the palm. In the blink of an eye, a black energy ball with a diameter of 3 to 4 meters appeared in the palm. Even though this black energy body wasn't huge, it gave off the feeling of an extremely unstable and violent star. It contained extremely dense power of darkness. "Sorry, I didn't give you time to say your last words." The man slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and a fierce push was released from his palm. Hum! In an instant, the black energy body dragged a blurry shadow in the void and attacked Chu Hen. Chu Hen's pupils rapidly shrank, and at the same time, a sacred silver light was released from his left palm. Chu Hen looked like he was holding a star, and the light was flashing. Bang! In the next moment, an unprecedented violent shock wave surged high up in the sky. The black energy body was like an exploding meteorite, and a huge circle of light bloomed in the sky, setting off a monstrous power of destruction in all directions. The 9 heavens lost its color, and the land below was collapsing. The earth-shattering dark energy swept out unceasingly. Mountain ridges collapsed one after another, rocks exploded, and mountain peaks were fractured. Chapter 13:23. Rumble, an earth-shattering dark shockwave burst out from it, like a biting cold storm sweeping in all directions. The world changed color as it was shrouded in a thick shadow. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. A huge sinkhole that extended dozens of miles quickly formed. The destructive power instantly caused a large area below to become barren. The power of the Saint King realm was so strong. The young man still looked at the collapsed and chaotic area below with an indifferent expression. His emotions did not fluctuate much. It seemed that, in his opinion, the one he killed was an insignificant ant. He could annihilate it with a flip of his hand. However, at this moment, the man frowned slightly and a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. "Oh, interesting." The chaotic airflow mixed with dust and sand blew across the sky. In the dissipating airwave, a figure with a gradually weakening aura became clear. In the sinkhole that looked like it had been blasted by meteorite fragments, Chu Hen's face was pale. He looked a little embarrassed, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. At this moment, he only felt that the blood in his body was constantly attacking his internal organs. Even so, Chu Hen's eyes were still as cold as the stars in the night. He did not have the slightest intention of retreating, nor did he show the slightest fear. One of them stood proudly in the sky, while the other stood on the ground. Although Chu Hen's aura had been greatly suppressed, his body was still straight. "I have to admit, you're a little stronger than that trash Shuehan." The young man's lips curled up slightly. There was a hint of playfulness in his eyes. "It's been a long time since anyone could take my third move." An obscure but amazing dark aura continued to overflow from the young man's body, and a dark vortex of light appeared outside his body. As he spoke softly, he raised his right hand that was surrounded by a mottled vortex. The black vortex flying in the sky fused with each other like petals and converged into the man's hand. With a trembling whisper, a black iron chain appeared in his palm. The slender iron chain, swaying with black flames, was like a soul-reaping object held by the god of death. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he moved his wrist. Voila! A wave of intense energy shook the air as the black iron chain swiftly tore through the air, and it was like a thin and long dragon snake that swept up a piercingly cold air as it pierced diagonally towards Chu Hen below. The black chains came at him menacingly, and their attacks were swift and fierce. Moreover, it kept increasing. Chu Hen's eyes darkened, and he immediately retreated. Bang! Like a laser beam, the iron chain plunged deep into the ground where Chu Hen was a second ago. Another pit appeared in the sinkhole. Countless rocks exploded from within. You dodged it again?" The corners of the young man's mouth curled up in disdain, and he answered his own question, "How is that possible?" Bang! At the same time, with Chu Hen as the center, the ground around him burst open one after another. Cold iron chains exuding a dark aura flew out in all directions, like a complicated ceiling formation, immediately trapping Chu Hen in the center. The awe-inspiring iron chains crisscrossed like iron chains crossing the river. In the center, Chu Hen's expression changed slightly, and his brows furrowed in seriousness. Buzz! Then, every iron chain emitted a dense dark light, and a huge invisible pressure surged from all directions. Chu Hen, who was suspended in midair, immediately froze on the spot. Subconsciously lowering his head to look, he saw that his body was already entangled by illusory chains. It was silent, deep in the quagmire of the seal. Buzz! The true inner force in Chu Hen's body circulated rapidly, and the purple lightning formed by the combination of the solitary burning demon flame and the divine thunder of Xian Sha dashed out of his body. The beautiful purple lightning was like a blooming lotus, and the black iron chains around Chu Hen's body tightened rapidly. The young man stood proudly in the air, and his indifferent eyes looked like he was looking at a prey in a cage. "You are meat on the chopping block. Struggling is useless, Buzz." A strange spatial rhythm spread out, and black whirlpools of light and shadows appeared around Chu Hen. The black shadows that filled the sky were like a rain of dancing black petals. The young man's fingers moved slightly, accompanied by an obscure vibrating sound, The black shadows quickly became sharp and slender, exuding a terrifying sharpness. In the blink of an eye, countless slender and sharp black light beams suddenly appeared around Chu Hen. All the light beams were pointed at Chu Hen, who was in the center. A disdainful, mocking smile spread across the young man's face. "You should be proud to die to this move of mine. Dark Death Ray." The young man clenched his fist, and in an instant, countless sharp black light beams suddenly swept up the murderous aura of destruction in the sky and swept toward one direction. The aura of death rapidly merged and converged. They gathered at one point. Chu Hen, who was sealed by the black iron chains, was like a fixed target. What awaited him was 1,000 arrows piercing his heart. The air was torn apart, and the death ray pierced his heart. Countless sharp rays of light unceasingly appeared in Chu Hen's pupils. An ice-cold chill emerged on his pale and handsome face. Buzz! A demonic purple light gushed out from the depths of his pupils, and the 6 black light spots rotated clockwise. Just at this critical moment, an anxious shout came from behind. "Don't kill him!" This, almost at the same time, a gorgeous purple halo mixed with an extremely sharp black beam of light surged in midair. The mighty aftermath swept the world, and the black light beams that were like a rain of light shattered near the gap between Chu Hen's fingers. The earth, which was already split apart, suffered another fierce impact. The majestic aftershock swept in all directions, causing the earth to crack layer by layer, and a thick layer was scraped off. The black iron chains that entangled around like a big net also burst and broke, flying in all directions. Phew! A clear gasp gradually came from the chaotic airflow. In the giant pit with messy gravel, Chu Hen was surrounded by strands of purple electric arcs. Compared to before, Chu Hen was in a much more difficult situation. There were many visible bloodstains on his body, and a few streaks of blood were dripping from his face. His cold eyes shot straight to the unshakable, powerful figure in the sky ahead. It seems that he is still a little bit weaker. The young man looked at Chu Hen with a hint of meaning in his eyes, but more of it was still disdain. At this time, on the other side of the broken peak, a young figure who was panting heavily looked at this side with an uneasy face. "Senior brother Xiaoyao, don't kill him." The person who came was none other than Huang Fu Hao, who had been avoiding Chu Hen all the way. The two glanced at each other. Chu Hen's mind was somewhat touched. He asked in a deep voice, "Where is she?" Huang Fu Hao frowned and looked at the young man with awe. He paused for a while and then said to Chu Hen coldly, "You can leave. My sister won't see you just like now. You don't even have the ability to resist in front of senior brother Xiaoyao. Go back to your East Continent and don't come back." After saying that, Huang Fu Hao immediately said to the young man, "Senior brother Xiaoyao, let's go." The young man raised his eyebrows and smiled slightly. Then he looked at Chu Hen condescendingly and said, "You should feel lucky that you survived. I don't want you to appear in front of me a second time." The understatement tone was exceptionally harsh. The two's words were like hot lava flowing into his blood, constantly rushing to his heart and stimulating every nerve. He could not refute it, and he was unable to refute it. The great sense of humiliation made Chu Hen's eyes glow with a trace of blood. Then, the young man's body showed a distorted and illusory state, then turned into a shadow and disappeared. Huang Fu Hao glanced at Chu Hen with a complicated expression. Without saying another word, he turned around and left in a hurry. Chapter 1324. The dust that filled the air gradually dispersed. Chu Hen, who was standing in the sinkhole, clenched his fists tightly. His gaze, which was filled with endless coldness, became sharper. A strong wave of hostility surged into his blood. "Leave. My sister will not see you. Just like now, you don't even have the chance to resist senior brother Xiaoyao. Go back to your East Continent and don't come back. You should be glad that you survived. I don't want you to appear in front of me a second time." The conversation between the two kept echoing in Chu Hen's mind. The ear-piercing voice was like magma in his body, causing every nerve in his body to tremble uneasily. An increasingly cold aura seeped out of Chu Hen's body. His handsome, angular face revealed the fierceness of a carving knife. The coldness that was filled with hostility was quietly released, as if a sleeping beast was slowly opening its eyes. Just as Chu Hen took a step forward, the airflow behind him trembled slightly. Following that, a slightly familiar chuckle was heard. "Don't chase, you can't beat him." Although the tone had a hint of playfulness, there was no hint of mockery in it. Chu Hen moved to the side and could not help but frown slightly. A smoke-like black shadow floated over. When it was about 2 to 3 meters away, the black fog converged and solidified at a speed visible to the naked eye. A slender human silhouette appeared, followed by a young man with a heroic air. The man was handsome and had a strange smile on his face. He was dressed lazily, giving off a sense of indecency. It was obvious that this person was none other than the genius from the Han sect, Izhou, lunatic Yi, who had snatched the 4 power of Desolate's attribute spirits. Chu Hen stared coldly at him. For him to come out at this time was undoubtedly unlucky. "Hey, I told him not to be so nervous." Izhou waved his hand. Following that, his figure moved, leaving afterimages in the air. In the next second, he appeared on Chu Hen's left. Raising his hand, he patted Chu Hen's shoulder and laughed heartily. "I was just joking with you before. Don't vent your anger on me." But seeing that Chu Hen's face was becoming more and more gloomy, Izhou retracted his hand and took 2 steps back, feeling a little embarrassed. "Let me kindly remind you that you won't be able to defeat that fellow. Even if you include me, who's also at the Saint King stage, our chances of defeating him are less than 30%. Saint King realm, 30%. Hearing these 2 words, Chu Hen's gloomy eyes faintly moved. He was somewhat surprised that this seemingly frivolous fellow in front of him was actually a Saint King stage powerhouse. No one of the other party could get rid of him so easily. He had even concealed his aura from the sacred-winged heavenly flame Sparrow's senses. Chu Hen continued to stare at him coldly. After a short pause, he said, "Give me back my 4 soul spirits, ah? Ha ha." Izhou was stunned for a moment before he laughed dryly to resolve the awkwardness. "I've studied it for a while and found that this thing is quite interesting. Can I borrow it for a few more times?" "No," Chu Hen replied straightforwardly. Izhou rolled his eyes in disdain. "I came out to remind you. I didn't ask you to remind me." Feeling Chu Hen's chilly aura that was continuously decreasing, Izhou could already feel the hidden hostility emitted from his body. It was obvious it was not easy to communicate with him now. All right. I'll return it to you." Izhou shrugged his shoulders. He immediately lifted his hand. Buzz! A circular gray-colored light vortex swiftly rotated on his palm. As the surrounding air turned turbid, an energy crystal with a gentle gray-colored light flickering within it appeared. "Really, I wouldn't have reminded you if I knew this would happen." Izhou exerted force on his wrist after he finished speaking, and the energy crystal floated toward Chu Hen. Chu Hen directly held it in his palm before he turned around and left without looking back. Izhou sighed and spread his hands. "How embarrassing. At least say thank you, right?" Chu Hen tilted his head slightly and replied indifferently, "Goodbye." Looking at Chu Hen's receding figure, Izhou's expression became serious. The way he looked at Chu Hen also became meaningful. "Looks like the rumors are true. Lu Minghong and Qin Shui were both killed by him, including Yang Zhongxiao. He defeated 3 geniuses on the excellence list. Where did this person come from?" Izhou muttered to himself as he glanced in the direction the Spirit Phoenix Valley people left. From the eastern continent. At this moment, Izhou was no longer as careless as before. His calm gaze revealed a hint of wisdom. He muttered to himself, "That hidden hostility just now really made me break out in a cold sweat. I guess there will be a good show to watch in the Holy War's enlistment." Letting out a deep breath, the corners of Izhou's mouth curled up, and a warm and sunny smile reappeared on his face. "See you later." Whoosh! In the deep forest, Huang Fu Hao, who was gritting his teeth, seemed to have a lot on his mind. He walked alone in the forest, his eyebrows knitted together like 2 dead silkworms. At this moment, his heart felt heavy, as if it was blocked by a huge rock. No matter what, he did not expect Chu Hen to appear here. Hundreds of millions of miles away, he thought he would never meet someone he knew again. Who would have thought that he would still bump into him? Suddenly, Huang Fu Hao's figure stopped abruptly because there was a young figure standing proudly on a mountain wall in front of him, and he had an extraordinary bearing. Senior brother Xiao Yao? Huang Fu Hao was stunned at first, then he flew to the young man's side. Senior brother Xiao Yao. It was obvious that the young man was waiting for him. Standing next to the young man, Huang Fu Hao felt an indescribable palpitation. It was different from other people's reverence. This was an indescribable fear, even if the young man treated the two of them very well. This fear could not be erased. The young man turned around and looked at Huang Fu Hao with a gentle smile on his face. Junior brother Xia Hao, why did you stop me from killing him? Hearing this, Huang Fu Hao's body suddenly trembled, and his face started to turn pale. Me? I just felt that, with your status, there was no need to kill him. Oh. The young man raised his eyebrows. That's it. Yes, that's it. Huang Fu Hao answered hesitantly. Are you sure it's not because of junior sister Xiaqing that you stopped me? No. Huang Fu Hao shook his head. After all, we are from the same place. I don't want to see him die in front of me. In my heart, the only candidate is you, senior brother Xiao Yao. No matter how hard that Chu Hen tries, he is not even 1/10 as good as you. The young man laughed, as if he was satisfied with Huang Fu Hao's answer. He walked sideways and stared into Huang Fu Hao's eyes. Junior brother Xia Hao, I don't want junior sister Xiaqing to know about what happened today. Do you understand? Senior brother Xiao Yao, don't worry. I won't tell my sister. Huang Fu Hao said this resolutely. In his heart, he really didn't want Huang Fu Qing to see Chu Hen again. Regardless of whether or not they had let go of their past grudges, he didn't want Huang Fu Qing to see Chu Hen again. He didn't want to see Huang Fu Qing get hurt again, especially now that there was a senior brother Xiao Yao, that even Huang Fu Hao was afraid of. The stars moved. The sun and the moon changed. The morning rain fell on the branches and leaves, crystal clear like pearls. In the depths of a gloomy forest, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth flowed like a spring into a river, surging toward a thin young figure. Phew! As he spat out a mouthful of light, red, turbid air, Chu Hen, who was sitting on the ground, opened his eyes. His previously gloomy eyes regained some of their luster. Although his face was still a bit pale, it was a lot better than before. His meridians and organs were still a bit painful, but they were no longer a problem. Thinking back to yesterday's fierce battle, Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. After facing 3 moves, although he didn't want to, he had to admit that that person was terrifyingly strong. Especially when Zhou said that the probability of him and Chu Hen defeating that person was no more than 30%. Chu Hen's heart was even more restless. Whoosh! At this time, a slight sound of wind breaking came from the forest in front of him. Chu Hen looked up, his eyes showing some vigilance. Chapter 1325. A faint aura spread out from the ground. Chu Hen's gaze paused as a tall and slender figure appeared in front of him. It was a beautiful woman wearing a long red dress. Her slender figure exuded an otherworldly aura, and her facial features were exquisite and beautiful. No matter where she was a beauty that could topple a country and bring disaster to its people. What was different from ordinary people was that her eyes were actually red, as if they were embedded with 2 precious gems. They were unique and beautiful, making it hard for people to look away. Seeing this beauty suddenly appear in front of him, Chu Hen was a little puzzled. However, the other party looked at Chu Hen as if she was looking at an acquaintance. How did you get injured? When Chu Hen heard this familiar voice, he couldn't help but be stunned. You don't recognize me? The other party raised her eyebrows when she saw Chu Hen's expression. In an instant, his train of thought stopped. The doubt on Chu Hen's face turned into realization. The other party was none other than the sacred-winged heavenly flame sparrow, Mo Qingli. I know now, Chu Hen replied as he stood up. Speaking of which, back in the eastern continent, Chu Hen had seen her in her human form. However, it was only a quick glance. and he only saw the side of her face. Now that he saw her again, he couldn't immediately remember who she was. "Oh," Mo Qingli responded softly, as if she was a little dissatisfied with Chu Hen's reaction. With her looks, any normal man would not have such an expression on his face. Not only was Chu Hen calm, but he was also somewhat cold. What happened? Mo Qingli pondered for a moment. She could tell that Chu Hen was currently in a depressed state. "Nothing much." Chu Hen didn't reply, but his eyes flashed with a faint coldness. "Nothing much." Mo Qingli's beautiful eyes slightly rippled. Her ruby-like eyes were filled with ripples. She could naturally tell that Chu Hen was lying, and she could also see that there were a few injuries on his body. It was obvious that during her absence, Chu Hen had engaged in a fierce battle with someone. In this battle, Chu Hen would most likely be defeated. "How are things on your side?" Chu Hen looked up and asked. Mo Qingli nodded. "And I've already figured out what swallowed your blue ran sword." "What is it?" Chu Hen clenched his fists. After a short pause, Mo Qingli's eyes were filled with emotion. Her red lips parted slightly as she said word by word. "Formless Emperor Blade." "Formless Emperor Blade?" Chu Hen murmured. "What is that?" "The peerless godly weapon ranked 16th on the god weapon ranking. 10,000 years ago, it was the weapon of the human race's Emperor Formless, the 16th place on the divine equipment ranking. Emperor Formless? These words caused Chu Hen's heartstrings to tremble. Chu Hen knew very well how powerful a godly weapon was. And any godly weapon ranked on the god weapon ranking had the power to destroy heaven and earth. They were all fought over by the world. "What's the specific situation?" Chu Hen quickly calmed down. Mo Qingli nodded and immediately explained in detail what she knew. "As far as I know, during the great battle in the Chaos Demon realm, countless powerhouses of the human race and other races fell. The number of godly weapons that were destroyed was even more uncountable. The Formless Emperor Blade has always been in a damaged state, but the biggest difference between this godly weapon and other godly weapons is its soul." "Oh." Chu Hen revealed a serious expression. "The Formless Emperor Blade's soul evolved from the demon spirit of the meteorite-devouring beast. It has an extremely strong devouring power. So the thing that swallowed the blue ran sword yesterday was the Formless Emperor Blade soul." "That's right," Mo Qingli affirmed, and continued to explain, "when other godly weapons are damaged, they can only be repaired by external forces. But the Formless Emperor Blade is different. Its soul can automatically devour other weapons to complete its self-repair. So far, it's not the only weapon that has been devoured by it. While I was chasing it, I saw many people chasing it." After listening to the other party's explanation, Chu Hen came to a sudden realization and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. He didn't expect that even a godly weapon's soul would have such a strong power. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the power of the 16th-ranked Formless Emperor Blade was. "Where's the Formless Emperor Blade now?" Chu Hen asked decisively. The corners of Mo Qingli's mouth curled up slightly, and she smiled. "Follow me." Chu Hen's eyes lit up, and he nodded. Then, the two of them rose into the air at the same time and flew towards the sky above the forest. The two of them walked side by side and quickly passed through the lush forest, moving rapidly above the peaks. "How much do you know about the Formless Emperor Blade?" Chu Hen glanced sideways at the other party's peerlessly beautiful face and asked. Mo Qingli paused for a moment before replying. "According to the rumors, the Formless Emperor Blade is formless and can transform into any shape and form." Formless and formless can transform into any shape and form. Does this mean that it can transform into any shape and form according to its owner's will? More or less. So, I can find the blue Rand sword and the TNI blade? That's hard to say. If the Formless Emperor Blade is compatible with the blue Rand sword, then it's possible to retain that part of its power. But if it only uses the power of other weapons to repair itself, then your weapon will only be its nutrients. Mo Qingli's explanation was more pertinent. But no matter what, Chu Hen was determined to obtain the Formless Emperor Blade. Similarly, the Formless Emperor Blade didn't just devour other weapons. Wanting to obtain this ranked, godly weapon would definitely not be an easy task. A sudden gust of wind blew over. Chuhen's gaze was fixed on the sky in front of him. The decisive light in his eyes was as steady and firm as the stars. Crash! On the surface of the azure blue water, waves after waves crashed into the reef, splashing waves all over the sky. From afar, the boundless sea seemed to be connected to the sky. On the surface of a sea near the land, there was a sinkhole in the water. The black sinkhole emitted a gloomy aura in the azure blue seawater, as if it was a mysterious door that led to another world. In the sinkhole in the water, there was a faint dark blue light emitting from it. The soft light was like a thin fiber that floated between heaven and earth, like a giant beam of light rushing into the sky. At this moment, more and more figures were rushing over from all directions. Most of them stopped at the shore for a while before entering the sinkhole in the sea. The endless stream of people was like a shoal of fish that had entered an endless abyss. Every time a person entered, the soft blue light that was released from the sinkhole would tremble a little. The invisible rhythm seemed to be activating the power of the airflow on the surface of the sea. The waves on the surface of the sea gradually became restless, and a whirlwind surrounded the sinkhole. The area gradually grew larger, and circle after circle swept out, slowly enveloping the heaven and earth and spreading out in all directions. It's getting more and more chaotic. Looks like a lot of trash has already entered the non-phase sky tomb. At this moment, at the peak of a mountain a few kilometers away from the shore, a dozen or so young figures with extraordinary auras were watching the changes in the situation on the surface of the sea. It's good to let these trash explore the way first. They didn't care about the people who had dived into the sinkhole in the sea in the slightest. They weren't worried at all that someone would beat them to it. In the past, I've only heard of the records of the formless emperor blade in the ancient books. I never thought that I would be able to see the glory of this incomparable godly weapon with my own eyes. It is truly my fortune. The one who spoke was a delicate young woman. Her appearance was quite delicate, giving people a feeling of softness and delicateness. Junior Sisterland's words are a little self-deprecating. Although the formless emperor blade is powerful, it's not something that's difficult to obtain for our clan, a young man said. The woman smiled slightly, but didn't say anything. However, the man didn't stop. He turned to a valiant and extraordinary figure standing in front of him and said, "Senior brother Lei Yuan, today, the formless emperor blade is already yours." At that time, the ranking on the excellence list will be refreshed once again. When he said this, the hearts of the people beside him couldn't help but be moved, and reverence surged out of their eyes. The young man who was called Lei Yuan smiled faintly. He first glanced at the sinkhole that was gradually strengthening into a whirlpool storm on the surface of the sea in front of him, then turned his body slightly and looked at the young woman not far away. "Junior Sister Jishin, you seem to be a little depressed. Are you feeling unwell?" The gentle voice carried a hint of concern. The woman smiled and shook her head. "I'm fine. Senior brother Lei Yuan, you don't have to worry about it." Lei Yuan raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to stroke her cheek. He gently tidied up the beautiful hair that was scattered on her shoulders. "Once the Sacred War enlistment ends, I'll immediately accompany you to the Eastern Victory State and kill all those who bullied you in the past." The woman's gaze was slightly cold, and a trace of coldness flashed across her eyes. However, she still shook her head and refused. "Forget it. The Eastern continent is hundreds of millions of miles away from here. It's too troublesome to go back and forth." Lei Yuan laughed coldly. "To think that the Thunder Saint Palace could be considered a stronghold that our clan established in the Eastern continent in the early days. Although we haven't managed it for nearly 1,000 years, it's still considered a part of our clan. Now that it's been destroyed by the hands of those scoundrels, we naturally can't sit back and do nothing. If it wasn't for the Sacred War enlistment, we would have already crossed the Middle East and turned the Eastern Victory State into a river of blood." Lei Yuan paused for a moment, then continued, "Jishin, Don't worry. I, Lei Yuan, am a man of my words. None of those who bullied you in the past will be able to escape. Even if it's all the sects and forces in the Eastern Victory State, as long as you say the word, I'll definitely make their entire clan grieve. Hearing his words, the woman's worry turned to joy, and her eyes shone brightly. She nodded. Yes, I believe in you, senior brother. Lei Yuan also smiled. He waved his hand domineeringly, and lightning seemed to flash on his body. Chapter 1326. A vast and majestic aura continuously swept out from the surface of the sea, where the waves stacked up one after another. A huge and majestic whirlpool wantonly stirred like a hurricane. The crater in the middle of the whirlpool was like the eye of the hurricane, mysterious and spectacular. Xiao. 2 consecutive sounds of rushing wind could be heard. One after another, 2 figures landed on a slope on the shore. Through the crater, we can reach the heavenly tomb where the formless Archblade is stored. Mo Qing Li was wearing a long red dress. Her eyes were like red stones as she pointed to the sea in front of them. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a hint of caution appeared on his face. He nodded and said, "Have you been in there before?" "Yes. Originally, I want to take the formless Archblade away by myself. However, there are many restrictions in the heavenly tomb. It will be safer for 2 people." As Mo Qingli replied, she slightly glanced at the other party. Previously, Chu Hen had been following behind her. However, halfway through, he suddenly changed direction. Therefore, Mo Qingli did not stay here for long. Instead, she went back to find Chu Hen. "Let's go in." Chu Hen nodded slightly. His eyes flashed with anticipation and cautiousness. "Xiao." Immediately, the 2 of them turned into a shadow and leapt into the chaotic storm. Like 2 sharp arrows, the 2 of them directly plunged into the surging whirlpool. Without any obstruction, they entered the dark and cold crater in the sea. Accompanied by the bone-chilling cold, Chu Hen and Mo Qingli felt as if they had entered a bottomless abyss. The feeling of being invaded by darkness surged violently. Hua, an obscure and strange energy quietly spread in all directions. A gorgeous blue light suddenly blossomed from the bottom of the abyss. The space seemed to shift. The rich blue light instantly engulfed the 2 of them. Wong! The air trembled. The 2 of them felt a flash of light in front of them. In the next moment, a strange world appeared in front of them. The sky was dark. This was a dusky world. Black clouds shrouded the 9th heaven, and there was almost no light shining through. Behind the thick clouds, one could vaguely see a strange nebula, making it difficult to tell whether it was day or night. In the dusky world, mountains rose and fell in the distance. The precipitous mountain ranges were like heavenly pillars that supported the heavens. The mountains and rivers were all gray in color, and the entire world was emitting a mysterious and strange aura. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and murmured, "What a strange place." He could vaguely sense that there were several auras hidden in the darkness up ahead. It was obvious that many people had already arrived here before them. Formless Emperor Blade. Just the title of 16th on the divine weapon ranking was enough to make countless people in the world fight for it. Even if it was a damaged divine artifact, it still didn't affect the people's desire for it. "Be careful, there are more people than when I arrived," Mo Qingli said. "And," Chu Hen replied in a low voice. The 2 of them didn't stop for too long, and quickly flew towards the depths of the formless sky tomb. The dark clouds seemed to be pressing down on their heads, giving them an indescribable sense of oppression. The undulating mountains below were like sleeping dragons, stretching as far as the eye could see and thousands of miles deep. The deeper they went, the more human auras they could sense. At the same time, Chu Hen could also sense that there were a few probing forces shooting towards them. The 2 of them had a tacit understanding and didn't pay any attention to it. At this moment, a huge canyon gradually appeared in their line of sight. The canyon was surrounded by mountains, and the peaks were like pillars, giving off an imposing aura. From afar, each peak looked like a divine mountain guarding the canyon. The sky above the canyon was still covered by dark clouds. Apart from that, there was also a dense fog drifting within the canyon. The fog was gray in color, thin on the outside, but dense on the inside. In the center of the fog, the silhouette of a majestic pillar could be vaguely seen. A few giant iron chains extended from the peak in all directions, slanting across the sky and extending for thousands of meters, connecting to the bottom of the earth below. Swoosh, swoosh, Chu Hen and Mo Qingli flew across the sky, quickly approaching the canyon. As they flew above the canyon, they could feel the strangeness of this place. They saw that the ground of the canyon was covered in dense fog, and there were countless weapons stuck in it. There were swords, sabers, halberds, cold spears, and many other rarely seen weapons, such as meteor hammers, nine-section whips, etc. As far as the eye could see, numerous divine weapons were either pierced into the ground or stuck in the cracks of the rocks. They were all over the canyon, emitting a sharp aura that gave off a great impact, be it in terms of aura or vision. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and his face was filled with shock. Could these be the weapons that were devoured by the formless Emperor Blade? Yes. Mo Qingli nodded, and her red lips opened slightly. If the formless Emperor Blade wants to repair itself, it must constantly devour other weapons to strengthen itself. After so many years, the amount it has accumulated is naturally astonishing. The Chaos Devil Domain was the remains of a battlefield from 10,000 years ago. Not only did countless almighty experts fall, but countless divine weapons were also left behind. This also gave the formless Emperor Blade enough power to replenish itself. In the vast canyon, ghost-like figures flashed in the gray fog. Everyone was trying their best to find the location of the formless Emperor Blade. We've been searching for 4 hours. Where exactly is the formless Emperor Blade? A low voice came from afar. The Heaven Burial Mound is so big, it's easier said than done to find the formless Emperor Blade. The Monarch Blade is most likely hidden among these weapons. After all, it's invisible and can transform into anything. Maybe it's in an inconspicuous place. What you said makes sense, but we can't possibly try them one by one, right? With so many weapons, how long will it take to find them? Stop talking nonsense. Let me tell you, I saw the Thunder Saint Clan's team just now. What? The Thunder Saint Clan? His voice was filled with shock, and there was a slight tremble in his voice. Other than the Thunder Saint Clan, the people from Floating Cloud City are here too. Damn it, there's no hope. They're here to snatch the meat. We won't even have a chance to drink the soup. Hearing the whispers from afar, Chu Hen and Mo Qingli couldn't help but look at each other. Thunder Saint Clan? Floating Cloud City? From the tone of their conversation, one could tell how powerful these two forces were. However, since they were already here, Chu Hen didn't plan to leave empty-handed, even if they were competing with the Thunder Saint Clan. Where's the formless Emperor Blade? Chu Hen looked at Mo Qingli. Why are you asking me? The latter asked. You wouldn't bring me here to look for it one by one, would you? Mo Qingli raised her eyebrows. If I can get the formless Emperor Blade, how will you thank me? What do you want? It seems like there's nothing else that you like besides my demon eyes, right? Then we'll talk about it later. Mo Qingli glanced sideways at the other party. Then his body turned into a beam of red light and disappeared into the depths of the valley. Chu Hen immediately caught up with him, a glimmer of light appearing in his eyes. You actually know where the formless Emperor Blade is. Chapter 13:27. Phew. In the fog-shrouded canyon, a huge chain that was thousands of meters long was connected to the majestic peak in the center of the canyon. Under the hazy environment, it looked like an ancient beast that was sealed here. People from all walks of life rushed in and searched for the location of the formless Emperor Blade. One after another, weapons were pulled up from the ground and thrown away one after another. Damn it, so many weapons. Which one is the formless Imperial Blade? Stop talking nonsense. The formless Imperial Blade must be hidden in this heaven tomb. After all, the formless sky tomb was quite vast, and there were weapons everywhere, so it was not easy to search for the formless Imperial Blade. But because of their desire for the divine weapon, everyone happily entered the fog. At this moment, Chu Hen directly followed Mo Qingli and quickly flew into the depths of the heaven tomb. After passing through layers of fog and climbing over the iron chain that stretched across the sky, the two arrived at a mountain stream on the side of the central peak. Through the dim fog, they could vaguely see a hidden crack at the bottom of the mountain stream. The crack was only 4 to 5 meters long and 1 meter wide, but it led straight to the bottom of the ground. It was deep and dark. What hidden place? The corners of Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed as he said, "The formless imperial blade is down there." Mo Qingli hesitated for a moment, then said, "Not necessarily, but its soul should be hidden here." Through the imprint left behind, Mo Qingli could sense the location of the soul. As long as they found the soul, they would naturally be able to find the location of the formless imperial blade. The two of them looked at each other and immediately moved. One after the other, they flashed into the crack in the ground below. Swoosh! 1 second after entering the ground, the two were surprised to find that the space below could be said to be astonishingly large. Endless darkness surged in from the boundless abyss. A wisp of obscure power was transmitted from the bottom of the abyss. The two of them nodded in tacit understanding. They each turned into a beam of light and sped up as they flew downwards. In the darkness beyond their sight, there seemed to be a monster awakening from its slumber, and faint rustling sounds could be heard. Soon, a black mist-like silhouette appeared in the origin region below. Chu Hen was secretly delighted. At the same time, he quietly circulated and released the true inner force within his body. At the same time, the Black Fog Phantom also discovered these two uninvited guests. Like an unknown monster in the deep sea, it turned around and swam deeper into the area. "It's going to run," Chu Hen said in a low voice as he tried to speed up his pursuit. "Don't be rash," Mo Qingli reminded. "Be careful of triggering the seals here." After a pause, her gem-like red eyes turned slightly, and she continued, Lure them over?" Chu Hen was startled. How was he supposed to lure it? The moment he was puzzled, he understood. "I got it." After saying that, Chu Hen raised his hand and flipped it over. A powerful vibrating sound rang out, and a 2-meter-wide heavy hammer appeared in Chu Hen's hand. The entire body of the hammer was covered in lava-shaped patterns, and circles of flame-shaped red light patterns were emitted. The violent divine hammer. When Chu Hen had just entered the martial ancestor realm, he had forcibly taken it from Shan Hong of the West Dome Peak Courtyard as a pledge for his star key. If he wanted to attract the formless imperial blade soul, the best way was to cater to its fancy. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen raised his hand and threw the violent divine hammer. Swish! The heavy hammer, which emitted a violent aura, flew forward like a boomerang. The Black Fog Phantom at the bottom of the abyss was like a hungry wolf that smelled blood. It immediately turned around and rushed toward the violent divine hammer, setting off a biting cold gust of wind. A heart-palpitating aura surged over. Compared to the blue Rand sword, the violent divine hammer was a divine-level weapon and was more attractive to the formless imperial blade. Chu Hen and Mo Qingli also quickly followed. Both parties rushed toward the violent divine hammer together. The distance between the two sides rapidly decreased. Just when the Black Fog Phantom was about 10 meters away from the violent divine hammer, Chu Hen's eyes flashed with a cold light. He stretched out his palm and released a strong suction force. The suction force, like an invisible hand, pulled the hammer back. However, almost at the same time, the black fog rolled, and the dense black shadow was like a dark cloud. In the darkness, a pair of golden eyes emitted a strange light. Seeing the giant in front of him at such a close distance, Chu Hen clearly saw the other party's body for the first time. Its appearance was similar to that of a Leviathan Kuan, with an oval head and body. The tail behind it was not obvious, and its whole body was covered in black flames. Although its body was not particularly large, the aura it emitted was incomparably frightening. Its whole body gave people the feeling of a moving, devouring whole, as if anything that came into contact with it would be mercilessly devoured. Chu-Hen became more and more frightened. Is this the formless Imperial Blade's soul, evolved from the meteor-devouring beast? Swoosh! The ferocious creature suddenly opened its mouth, and a gray beam of light shot out from its mouth that was as deep as a black abyss. Dodge! Chu-Hen shouted. Yesterday, when they were outside, Chu-Hen had suffered a loss due to a moment of carelessness. He was hit by the beam of light, and half of his body had fallen into a petrified state. Swoosh! As the powerful beam of light shot toward them, the two of them dodged to the left and right like eagles. Following that, a powerful suction force once again erupted from the other party's mouth. Accompanied by a piercingly cold whirlwind, the violent divine hammer was like a small boat caught in a storm as it fell directly into its mouth. Chu-Hen frowned slightly as he clenched his fists. This fellow was a little too ruthless. Even a divine artifact was swallowed in one gulp. If Shen Hong knew that his family's ancestral divine artifact had been used as bait, he would definitely spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. But Chu-Hen didn't care. In any case, Shen Hong still owed him thousands of star keys, which he likely wouldn't be able to repay in his lifetime. It didn't matter if the violent divine hammer was gone. Li. At that moment, a loud and clear bird cry resounded across the entire origin region. Dazzling rainbow light illuminated the darkness like a divine rainbow. Immediately afterward, a colorful shadow wings suddenly descended from the sky, drawing a beautiful light curtain in the void, and then it firmly hit the whale-like black mist phantasm. HSS. Divine splendor splashed as the black mist swayed. The dazzling aurora was like a flash of light. The multicolored shadow wing instantly turned into an arc blade that cut through the other party's body. With a sharp whistle, the other party's body turned into a black shadow that rapidly fled to the bottom of the abyss, vanishing into the darkness in 2 blinks of an eye. Chase! I'll go down alone. Emo Qingli, surrounded by soft rainbow light, glanced sideways at Chu-Hen. Chu-Hen was taken aback, looking at the other party in confusion. Emo Qingli continued seriously. You stay here and block its path of retreat. Chu-Hen trusted Emo Qingli quite a bit. Although he was a little worried about letting her go down alone, he still chose to agree. He immediately nodded. Be careful. Okay. Chapter 1328. Whoosh! A circle of blazing red light rippled in the air. Emo Qingli directly turned into a pair of aurora shadow wings and chased after the formless Archblade soul below. Her speed was as fast as lightning, and in the blink of an eye, she flashed into the abyss of darkness. Chu-Hen gently let out a breath. The corners of his eyes slightly narrowed, and his face became a little more solemn. In the darkness, although his line of sight was somewhat limited, his perception was not affected. Traces of airflow that resembled a gentle breeze drifted in the surroundings like invisible ripples. This kind of feeling was like being trapped in an isolated island in the middle of the sea, which made people feel quite uneasy. After about half a cup of tea's time, Chu-Hen vaguely had some doubts in his heart. At the same time, a few unfamiliar auras entered the top of his head. Chu-Hen was slightly startled. It was obvious that someone had discovered this place. There would only be more and more people entering this place. It was definitely not appropriate to keep dragging this on. After a moment of hesitation, Chu-Hen immediately leaped down, like a swordfish diving into the deep water, and swept at an extremely fast speed towards the bottom of the abyss of darkness. The bottom of the endless abyss of the tomb of heaven was like a vast universe. Chu-Hen relied on a trace of Emo Qingli's aura to move straight down. Roar! A violent roar faintly entered Chu-Hen's ears, and at the same time, a few beams of light faintly appeared in the darkness. Chu-Hen's eyes slightly lit up, and a trace of purple light overflowed from his deep eyes. Once again moving down a distance of nearly 1,000 meters, what came into view was a deep valley and a gorgeous seal talisman array that emitted a 5-colored luster laid horizontally in the air. Countless beautiful light ripples overflowed in all directions, surging with extremely strong energy fluctuations. Under the five-color talisman array, a mass of black fog violently rolled, like a ferocious beast constantly hitting the talisman array. Mo Qingli stood in the center of the talisman array, and her slender and tall figure was surrounded by a five-colored halo. Screech! A loud and clear bird's cry overlapped, and a phantom of a divine bird with two colorful wings appeared in the center of the talisman array. Mo Qingli, who was inside the phantom, clasped her hands together and formed a seal with her 10 fingers. Voila! With her, as the center, a substantial red flame suddenly spread in all directions. The divine bird phantom was like a phoenix bathed in fire. Mo Qingli's temperament was spirited, and her posture was picturesque. She looked like a supreme wizard who controlled the power of the godly flame. At the same time as the flames covered the symbol array, streams of vigorous fire pillars immediately surged downwards. They were like sharp fire stakes that crisscrossed chaotically as they continuously pierced through the black fog. Among them, there were 7 to 8 fire pillars that directly pierced through its front and back. Roar! A ferocious roar erupted from the of a ferocious beast. The black mist that was like a demonic barrier dispersed, and a ferocious whale-like monster was exposed to everyone's sight. Its oval-shaped body seemed to have been pierced by a few quenched giant thorns, and it was as if it was fixed in place by a support, unable to move. Witnessing this scene, Chu Hen silently nodded his head. Mo Qingli's capabilities were much stronger than he had imagined. He wondered how far away she was from her peak. One after another, quenched giant thorns emitting a powerful sealing aura launched their attacks. The artifact soul's aura rapidly weakened, as if it was being crushed by a mountain torrent. Roar! Suddenly, the artifact's spirit emitted another ear-piercing howl. An invisible sound wave directly invaded Chu Hen's soul and mind, causing him to feel a wave of dizziness. Reiki energy attack? Chu Hen was startled and clenched his fists. Immediately after, a majestic ash-gray pillar of light shot out from the bottom of the Origin Region Valley, and a terrifying power comparable to a volcanic eruption soared into the sky. The grayish-white beam of light directly broke through the colorful talisman array and collided with the shadow of the divine bird that was hovering around Mo Qingli. In an instant, a circle of white light emerged from the phoenix that was bathed in fire. At the same time, a thick layer of rock rapidly wrapped around Mo Qingli's body. Without any hesitation, Chu Hen immediately flew down with the intention of going forward to help. But the next moment, Mo Qingli's cold voice rang out. "Don't worry about me. Stop it." Chu Hen's expression darkened. Before he could react, the space below trembled uneasily, and the ferocious whale-like beast shrank into a black shadow. Like irregular black mud, it rapidly broke free from the control of the quenched thorns and escaped through the hole in the talisman array. Swoosh! The mud-like black shadow was formless and instantly broke free of Mo Qingli's control. At the same time, it fled in the direction of Chu Hen, who was hovering in the sky. Chu Hen's pupils faintly shrank. A low and deep spatial vibration spread out. Immediately, a purple light flickered within his eyes. Accompanied by an ice-cold aura, the space below him twisted. Purple demonic flames rose from the sky like a tide and blossomed in all directions. Whoosh! As soon as the solitary burning demonic flames appeared, it was like a sweeping wave that immediately engulfed the black shadow. Woo! Roar! A long and clear howl burst out from within, and a ball of fire wrapped in purple flames rolled left and right, violently struggling to break free. However, no matter how much it struggled, the solitary burning demonic flames could not be shaken off. First, Mo Qingli's sealing power was forcefully consumed. Then Chu Hen's demonic flames blocked the path. The aura emitted by the black shadow was rapidly weakening. Then, Chu Hen stretched out his palm and clenched his 5 fingers in the air. Hum! A shocking aura spread out, and the purple flames, which were like a tide, gathered towards the tool's spirit in the middle. Whoosh! A beautiful circle of purple flames rose and stacked up, and the tool spirit's body was once again violently compressed. However, just as Chu Hen was about to make his next move, the tool spirit, which had nowhere to run, suddenly released an extremely violent force outward. Bang! A heavy muffled sound resounded, and the extremely ferocious repulsive force was like a raging whirlpool. The purple demonic flames that enveloped the tool spirit were like a tide that spread out and were directly pushed back. Then, the black mud-like invisible shadow flew out from the chaotic demonic flames. In the direction it was charging towards was Chu Hen. Chu Hen's eyes faintly trembled. In a moment of haste, he wanted to release the power of the demon eye and condense the shield of punishment. But the instant the purple light pattern appeared in the air, the black shadow tore through the air and arrived, and solidly struck the center of Chu Hen's chest. Bang! In an instant, Chu Hen felt that the internal organs in his body were violently churning. The terrifying impact was like a meteorite that directly sent Chu Hen flying into the sky. What was even more unexpected was that the mud-like black shadow that hit Chu Hen actually flowed along his chest. Like a ball of gelatinous substance, it instantly climbed up his head, shoulders, and limbs. "Get lost!" Chu Hen shouted in a low voice. While trying to maintain his body's balance, he pulled the black shadow on his face with both hands and tore it away from his face. But just as he tore off the black shadow on his face, the rest of his body was quickly occupied. In just a blink of an eye, Chu Hen's entire body seemed to be dyed with a layer of strange black glue. Damn it! Chu Hen was shocked. This thing actually wants to devour me? What is that? At the same time, the people who came down from the underground looked at the figure that was completely covered by the black shadow in astonishment. Formless Emperor Blade. It's Formless Emperor Blade. Someone exclaimed. What? That's Formless Emperor Blade? It's formless and formless. It can't be wrong. Chase. Everyone's eyes lit up, and they all burst forth with rapid speed to chase up. Then, boom! With a loud noise, the ground close to the center of the formless sky tomb suddenly exploded, creating a large hole that was dozens of meters wide. Along with a torrent of aura, the huge formless sky tomb immediately fell into chaos. The giant iron chains that ran diagonally between heaven and earth swayed uneasily, and all the weapons inside and outside the canyon let out waves of trembling. In the faint gray fog, everyone saw a black shadow fly out from the ground, shattering thousands of rocks and flying into the sky. It's Formless Emperor Blade. Chapter 1329. It's the Formless Imperial Dagger. The words that were filled with astonishment and surprise were like the source of a storm. When they saw the black figure that was blasted out from underground, the entire formless heavenly tomb was instantly stirred up. In an instant, all the auras that gathered in the surroundings directly locked onto the figure. Whoosh, whoosh. Within the dense mist, the sound of rushing wind could be heard one after another. Everyone was like a pack of hungry beasts as they charged towards the black figure. The Formless Imperial Dagger is mine. Anyone who obstructs me will die. Hee, what high-sounding sentiments. Do you think a vulgar person like you is worthy of a divine artifact? If you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. The smell of gunpowder in the fight was instantly ignited. Pairs of eyes that were suffused with red light revealed ghastly fierceness. Just as everyone stretched out their hands towards the black figure, an extraordinarily overbearing and majestic aura suddenly erupted from it. Hiss! Powerful black waves of air mixed with chaotic purple light swept out. It was like a large water ball that exploded in the sky, and a majestic shock wave swept out. The pioneers that were caught off guard were blasted back. All of them revealed expressions of shock, and their gazes were still throbbing. As expected of the Formless Imperial Dagger, it actually possesses such terrifying divine might. There are more and more people. Damn it, what should we do now? More and more people flashed through the sky, leaped over the enormous iron chain that traversed the heavens and the earth, and rushed over at top speed. Suddenly, a figure that was like a ghost charged before the black figure with a flickering and elegant movement technique. Without saying a word, he raised his hand to raise a majestic and shocking palm energy that crushed down. The majestic palm energy was continuous like the clouds, and it was a combination of hardness and gentleness, extremely domineering. Cloud riding palm? Floating cloud cities Lidonga? It can't be wrong. That movement technique is also one of Floating Cloud City's top techniques, Cloud Flash. It's over. The formless Imperial Dagger is going to be taken by Li Dongha. The power of the palm shrouded down like a sea of clouds. But at this moment, the black figure actually released a series of dazzling purple lightning. For example, the interweaving purple lightning of the Thunder Tribulation instantly condensed into a heaven-punishing giant blade, rolling up endless destructive power as it rushed forward. Boom! Two frightening forces collided, causing the sky to tremble. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the giant blade formed from the convergence of purple lightning directly broke through the majestic palm attack formed from a sea of clouds. Rumble, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The purple lightning blade was like a hot knife through butter as it charged towards the ghostly figure of Li Dongha. The latter quickly moved, leaving behind an afterimage on the spot. In the next second, he appeared behind the black figure. Without any pause, Li Dongha once again unleashed a monstrous amount of true inner force to launch an attack. The black figure, flickering with purple arcs of lightning, responded fearlessly. Looking at the aftermath of the chaotic energy that was constantly being released from the fog, the surrounding people were even more surprised. Wait, that's a person. Yes, looks like the formless Imperial Dagger was found by that person first, but he has no way of subduing the divine artifact, so his state is very unstable. There's actually such a foolish person in the world. On one hand, he has to prevent the backlash of the divine artifact's power, and on the other hand, he has to resist the siege of others. Looks like this guy is going to be the first person to sacrifice the Imperial Dagger. Bang! Clang! Wave after wave of chaotic energy surged in the sky above the formless sky tomb. Just as the others thought, at this moment, Chu Hen could be said to be in between the two blades, and he was feeling rather uncomfortable. The formless Imperial Dagger's artifact, Soul, showed signs of wanting to devour Chu Hen. It turned into a black mud-like substance, constantly occupying and eroding Chu Hen's body. Looking at Chu Hen's body, it was as if he was wrapped in layers of bandages that emitted a black aura. The black bandages covered Chu Hen's body, for limbs, and even his face. Only a pair of cold eyes that faintly flickered with a demonic purple light was exposed. While Chu Hen was dealing with Li Dongha's ferocious attacks, he also diverted a portion of his energy to suppress the formless Imperial Dagger's artifact soul. The confrontation between the two caused the world to shake. The crowd could not help but be surprised. Even with Li Dongha's strength, he still could not take down the opponent after so long. Whoosh! On a mountain range surrounded by thin gray mist, a dozen or so figures exuding a thunderous and mighty aura quietly stood there. Compared to the more anxious and restless people, their attitudes were calm and composed, arrogant with a bit of frivolity. I didn't expect the people from Floating Cloud City to come and join in the fun. This Li Dongha is at least on the Wind Cloud ranking list. Why is he still unable to seize the formless Imperial Dagger's artifact soul after so long? Hee. I'm afraid he has an undeserved reputation. What's more, with senior brother Lei Yuan here, they're just wasting their efforts. The few people joked with each other while looking at the young and valiant figure standing in the center. Standing beside Lei Yuan were two young women. One of them was standing quite close to him, their sleeves lightly touching. Her beautiful face showed a bit of dependence. The other was staring at the fierce battle that was faintly discernible in the fog with a serious expression. Her gaze was slightly focused, and there was an indescribable cautiousness in it. Junior Sister Xiaolan seems to be a bit nervous, a man on the side said with a smile. The woman lightly clenched her fists, pursed her lips, and smiled a bit awkwardly. The other man continued, "Hey, junior sister Xiaolan has rarely seen this kind of scene before, so naturally she's not used to it. Plus, the atmosphere in the formless heavenly tomb is quite oppressive, so it's normal for people to be a bit nervous." Hee, that's true. Since that's the case, then I'll let everyone see it more clearly, the young man who asked the question first smiled. Then he took 2 steps forward, clasped his hands in front of him, and along with the true yuan in his body, a strong airflow suddenly filled the air. Hurricane passes. With a light shout, an incomparably cold gale suddenly rose between heaven and earth. The hurricane blew up, and in an instant, the fog that enveloped the non-phase sky tomb was like a cloud that was swept away by the wind, blown away and expelled. Phew! A large area of fog quickly dissipated, and the environment inside the heaven tomb appeared clearly in everyone's line of sight at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even though the sky was still covered by dark clouds, without the cover of the fog, everyone felt that their field of vision had become incomparably wide. Walala! Strong gusts of wind blew the gigantic iron chains, shaking them intensely. A few thousands of meters long chains connected the ground and the sword-like peak in the center of the tomb of heaven like a river. And 2 to 3 miles away from the peak, Li Donghe and the figure wrapped in black bandages were fiercely confronting each other. Huh? The fog dissipated. Someone purposely blew it away. Wait, isn't that the Thunder St. Clan's team? An even more uneasy feeling rose in everyone's heart. In an instant, the restless crowd could not help but stop moving. All of their faces were filled with shock. In front of the Thunder St. Clan's team, the man turned his body sideways and said to the young woman proudly, "Hey, don't you think it's much clearer now?" The woman nodded politely and looked up at the fierce battle in the sky. Li Donghe of Floating Cloud City's movement technique was elegant and sharp. Each of his attacks was as imposing as an eagle's. On the other hand, the figure wrapped in black bandages was flashing with strange purple lightning arcs. The lightning arcs swam between his palms and arms, displaying his domineering might. Huh, he actually possesses the power of lightning? The people from the Thunder St. Clan were slightly surprised. Looks like the power of that purple lightning isn't weak. Humph. No matter how powerful the power of lightning is, it's nothing before the saint physique of our clan. That's true. Although they were surprised, they still did not think much of it. This aura? Surprise flashed in the eyes of the young woman called Xiaolan. She frowned and stared at the purple lightning that emitted a manic aura. What's going on? Why does it have the aura of the profound, killer divine lightning? She was puzzled, confused, and uneasy. The terrifying blue lightning that bloomed in the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace and a shocking young figure that looked like a fiend god appeared in her mind. Her eyes were a little blurred. When she saw the evil eyes on the black figure's face that were faintly glowing with a purple light, her heart skipped a beat as though it had been hit by a heavy hammer. Her heartstrings trembled as her face turned pale. She clenched her fists in disbelief. Impossible. It can't be him. It can't be him. The mumbled words were like the buzzing of a mosquito, and the others around him looked at him in confusion. Junior Sister Lan, what's wrong? She did not answer. She was still feeling uneasy. The young woman standing next to Lei Yuan also looked at her in confusion. Although she was puzzled, she only glanced at her indifferently and did not pay much attention to her. Rumble. At that moment, Li Donghe, who had been attacking for a long time without any success, finally decided not to delay any longer. An earth-shattering aura erupted, and the clouds that blotted out the sky rapidly fused into his palms. Heavenly river of clouds, Dong shouted. Accompanied by the rumbling of thunder and the sound of storm, the clouds surged into the sky. Suddenly, a majestic pillar of wind suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. The majestic pillar of wind rose into the sky and roared to the 9 heavens. It was like a storm beast that could devour the heavens. Feeling the terrifying aura of the destructive power, the people around them retreated, afraid that they would be sucked into it. This power is really terrifying. Looks like Li Donghe also knows that the Thunder Saint Clan is nearby, so he doesn't dare to delay any longer. Facing the violent pillar of wind, Chu Hen felt like he was standing in front of a prehistoric beast. Only his eyes that were exposed flashed with purple lightning. Whoosh! Whoosh! Like millions of thunderbirds letting out deafening cries, countless majestic purple lightning bloomed in the sky. The dazzling purple light shone in the sky, instantly illuminating the dusky, formless sky mound. The purple lightning pillar exploded with destructive power. The moment it collided with the vortex of wind, thousands of lightning pillars rapidly converged. Purple lightning, demonic flame burial. Roar! A resounding dragon roar shook the hearts of everyone present. In the next instant, a giant dragon that was thousands of feet long soared into the heavenly river in rage. The majestic dragon's body was completely formed by lightning. Every inch of it emitted a violent, destructive aura. Every strand of lightning wandering on its surface was as sharp as a machete. Hiss! Under everyone's shocked gazes, the giant purple lightning dragon collided with a vortex of wind that could devour the heavens. As soon as the two terrifying powers collided, the destructive power immediately seemed to be able to break through the stars. The sky and earth shook, and the aftermath wreaked havoc. The sky shook, and the earth cracked. The vast and violent air waves mixed with countless lightning tribulations scattered inside and outside the formless sky mound. The giant iron chains that connected the sky and earth shook violently, and cracks appeared. At the same time, countless cracks appeared on the ground. At the same time, the pillar in the center of the heaven tomb also cracked open with deep lines. Bang! The impact of the collision between the giant dragon and the storm could be said to have exploded the whole place. The tsunami-like aftermath swept out. Li Donghe was actually pushed back by the violent force of the collision. What? Everyone was shocked. The prodigy Li Donghe was actually at a disadvantage? Who was that person? How could he defeat Li Donghe despite being corroded by the formless Emperor Blade? A series of questions instantly surged in everyone's mind. At the same time, a tyrannical aura once again leaked out from the black figure's body. Gorgeous purple lightning quickly flickered up and down his body and gathered towards his face. With a bang, the black bandage wrapped around his face was the first to break apart. A circle of condensed energy patterns appeared, and then a slightly thin, handsome face was exposed to the air. In an instant, Lei Xiaolan's pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and her face immediately became as pale as a sheet. Her body trembled as if she had seen a nightmare of the past. It was as if the whole world had fallen into a state of stagnation. It's really him. Lei Jixin, who stood beside Lei Yuan, also had a look of shock and disbelief. Chapter 1330. Endless chaotic airflow rose into the sky and swept across the sky above the formless sky tomb like a storm. When they saw the face of a young man who was shrouded in purple lightning and had a black bandage wrapped around his body, most of the people present had a bewildered expression on their faces. Who's that? I don't know. I've looked into all the geniuses on the wind cloud list, but I don't think I've seen this person before. Even Li Donghe couldn't take advantage of him. This person is definitely not simple. Zap! Zap! Dazzling arcs of lightning swam around Chu Hen's body. The mud-like substance around his body tightened and expanded from time to time under the impact of the lightning. It gave people the feeling that they were in a strange seal. Chu Hen's face revealed a bit of coldness and fierceness. His black hair danced with the wind, and the cold light that flashed in his eyes was like the brilliance of the stars. A demonic black aura mixed with purple lightning surged around his body. His entire body emitted a chilling aura that caused people's hearts to tremble. Lei Xiaolan and Lei Jixin, who were standing in the Thunder Saint Clan's group, trembled as they looked at the handsome and cold face. It was as if the nightmare that had been haunting their hearts had awakened. The scenes of what happened in the Thunder Saint Palace in the Eastern Victory State instantly surged into their minds. It's really him. Lei Xiaolan lightly covered her mouth as she clenched her fists. Her knuckles and delicate face were pale. A storm swept across the sky, and a cyclone stirred the sky. The people from the Thunder Saint clan looked at the two of them in surprise. "You know him?" Lei Xiaolan did not speak. Her slightly reddened eyes were filled with complicated emotions. On the other hand, Lei Zhixin's expression was ice-cold. Her eyes were filled with frost. "Not only do I know him, I'll never forget him for the rest of my life." Her words were cold and hard, like ice thorns. She did not conceal the hatred and resentment in her words. The corner of Lei Yuan's eyes narrowed as he turned to the side and asked, "Could this person be?" Lei Zhixin clenched her fists and stared at Lei Yuan's handsome face with a cold gaze. She said word by word, "It's him. He killed Lei Mingho, killed Sacred Lord Lei, and destroyed the Thunder Saint Palace." When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Who would have thought that, after a few years, the hatred of the Eastern Victorious continent would once again be brought to the Midland? Lei Zhixin's words shocked everyone from the Thunder Sacred clan. Everyone turned to look at Chu Hen, their gazes as cold as sharp swords. "Lei Lu," Lei Yuan's voice sank. "Here." A burly figure behind him replied in a deep voice. "Capture him." Lei Yuan raised an eyebrow, his tone frivolous. "Also, keep him alive." "Ha, that's exactly what I was thinking." The burly man sneered and leapt into the air, leading 7 or 8 experts of the Thunder Sacred clan towards the Heaven Tomb. When the lightning moved, it was earth-shattering. The monstrous pressure caused everyone's expression to change. It's the Thunder Saint clan. They're finally making their move. Sigh, it seems like we came here in vain again. We don't have a share of the formless Emperor Blade. Shocked, everyone who was about to step forward subconsciously stopped and even took a few steps back. None of the people present dared to stand in front of the Thunder Sacred clan. Facing the menacing Thunder Sacred clan, Chu Hen vaguely sensed a hint of danger. But since things had already come to this, retreat was no longer possible. Crack! A series of violent silver arcs of lightning flowed out of the bodies of the Sacred Thunder clan members, accompanied by a shrill screech of lightning. The air around them immediately became extremely agitated. Nearly 10 figures with overbearing auras stood proudly in front of Chu Hen. Every single one of them had an expression as cold as ice. "Ha, I've heard so much about you." Lei sneered mockingly. "I've heard so much about you." It was a polite greeting, but coming from his mouth, it sounded more like a mockery. Chu Hen could not help but reveal some confusion on his face. Did they know him? Whoosh! With a heavy tremor, a curved halberd that was intertwined with lightning appeared in Lei Lu's hand. He pointed the tip of the halberd at Chu Hen. He was as wild as a celestial soldier and divine general. "I wanted to go to the victorious Eastern State to take your cheap life, but I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. The heavens really can't forgive you, victorious Eastern State." Chu Hen originally thought that Lei Lu had mistaken him for someone else, but when he heard those 3 words, he couldn't help but be surprised. Immediately, Chu Hen subconsciously swept his gaze in the direction that the group of people had come from. On the mountain peak in front of him, 2 faintly familiar figures quietly entered his sight. Looking at the 2 people from afar, Chu Hen's pupils shrank and a look of surprise appeared on his face. "Looks like I don't need to explain anymore." Lei Lu's posture was arrogant, and there was a hint of disdain between his brows. Chu Hen's breathing was gentle, but his eyes were clearly much colder. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Ever since the battle at the Thunder Saint Palace, he had thought that the enmity had been completely resolved. He never expected to meet the fuse of the enmity here. Although he didn't know the relationship between Lei Zhixin and the Thunder Saint clan, Chu Hen could still clearly sense the hatred and coldness in her eyes. A cold smile slowly formed at the corner of Lei Zhixin's mouth. She stared at Chu Hen as if she was looking at a corpse. "This time, I'll make you wish you were dead." Lei Zhixin muttered to herself coldly and resentfully. Lei Yuan smiled and patted her arm gently. "You can do whatever you want with him. As long as you're happy, you can cut him into 1,000 pieces." Lei Zhixin nodded with a cold gaze. Standing here as a member of the Thunder Saint clan, she was like a judge. Lei Xiaolan, who was not far away, clenched her fists and frowned. No one knew what she was thinking. Rumble. Thunder roared in the sky above the phaseless sky mound. The invisible pressure was like a mountain pressing down on them from all directions. Lei Lu teased indifferently. Are you going to give up without a fight? Or do you want me to do it myself? However, Chu Hen also laughed. He raised his brows and mocked back. Why don't you get someone else to talk to me? You're courting death. Lei Lu's gaze turned cold. Countless wild electric arcs quickly scuttled onto the halberd in his hand. His figure moved through the air, and the thunder halberd flew towards Chu Hen's head like a dragon emerging from a sea. At the same time, the black bandage wrapped around Chu Hen's body was still rapidly tightening. The soul of the formless emperor blade was like a deadly poison that corroded Chu Hen's internal organs. Although it affected him quite a bit, Chu Hen did not panic at all. Clang! The battle halberd that was bursting with silver lightning swung over. Chu Hen leapt high into the air, and, at the same time dodging the opponent's attack, his left hand condensed into a single palm. Following a chi-chi sound, gorgeous purple lightning quickly gathered in the center of his palm. Dragging the purple electric arcs in his palm, Chu Hen directly launched a frontal thrust, blasting the lightning in his palm at Lei Lu. The latter's expression changed slightly, and he raised his halberd to block. Rumble. The next moment, electric arcs exploded. The purple electric arcs in Chu Hen's palm collided with the halberd in front of Lei Lu like an aurora. A dazzling light wave exploded in the sky. Lei Lu immediately felt his arms go numb, and his sturdy tiger body was knocked back. What ferocious power! The spectators' expressions changed again. Lei Lu himself was also shocked. He, who possessed the bloodline limit of the sacred thunder body, had absolute control over the power of thunder and lightning that no one else could. However, what surprised him was that the power of the purple lightning that Chu Hen released was actually stronger than his. I said, "It's best if someone else talks to me," Chu Hen said coldly. Perhaps it was because of the formless Emperor Blade's artifact spirit or something else, but the aura released by Chu Hen gradually turned frigid, and his handsome face took on a sinister expression. Don't celebrate too early. Lei Lu's expression darkened. He steadied himself in the air, raised his halberd with both hands, and swung it down vertically. A bolt of lightning more than a dozen feet tall fell from the sky, sweeping up an overbearing destructive power as it headed straight for Chu Hen's head. However, Chu Hen didn't even bat an eyelid in the face of this bolt of lightning. Beams of beautiful purple light quickly flowed up and down his arms. Chu Hen once again grasped the power of the purple lightning and faced the frightening lightning pillar that was descending. Quang dang! A loud and heavy sound rang out. A purple light that was like a shadow blade flashed past. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Chu Hen had actually used the purple lightning in his hand to directly cut off the frightening lightning in the middle. Dazzling sparks illuminated the land, using lightning to intercept lightning. Chu Hen was like a sharp blade that could cut through anything. Lei Lu didn't dare to be careless and sternly shouted, "Do it!" At his command, the other Lightning Saint Palace experts erupted with astonishing power and attacked Chu Hen as a group. Humph! Chu Hen sneered, fearlessly meeting their attacks. In an instant, lightning flashed in the sky above the formless sky tomb. Silver lightning was extremely destructive, causing the sky to tremble and the earth to crack wherever it passed. As for the purple pillar of lightning released by Chu Hen, it stunned the entire audience. Every time it collided, it displayed its sharpness. Purple lightning. Lei Yuan gently rubbed his chin as he muttered to himself in surprise. Chapter 1331. Purple lightning. Lei Yuan stroked his chin, a trace of surprise in his calm tone. It's the profound killer lightning. Lei Xiaolan, who was standing nearby, whispered. Although it was different from the profound killer lightning she had seen in the eastern continent, Lei Xiaolan, who was born with extraordinary perception, could tell that it was a product of the profound killer lightning's evolution. Purple? Lei Yuan raised an eyebrow. Its power should have been upgraded. The power of this purple lightning is even stronger than the profound killer lightning. Lei Xiaolan continued to explain. Oh, Lei Yuan was slightly surprised. He then glanced sideways at Lei Xiaolan. How does it compare to the underworld fire heavenly lightning? Underworld fire heavenly lightning? Lei Xiaolan's expression changed slightly when she heard Lei Yuan's question. There was a hint of hesitation in her eyes. The corners of Lei Yuan's mouth curled up slightly when he saw Lei Yuan's hesitant expression. There's no harm in saying it. Lei Xiaolan glanced at Lei Jixin before replying. Of course it's senior brother Lei Yuan's underworld fire, heavenly lightning that's more powerful. Are you speaking the truth? Lei Xiaolan pursed her lips nervously at Lei Yuan's unrelenting attitude. Yes. How can a mere lowly disciple be mentioned in the same breath as senior brother Lei Yuan? Lei Jixin said coldly. Lei Yuan smiled, and then shifted his gaze away from Lei Xiaolan. She immediately felt relieved and secretly wiped the sweat from her palms. Lei Jixin continued. A mere black Kshitra divine thunder can't even withstand a single blow from the netherfire heavenly thunder. Moreover, senior brother possesses the bloodline power of the thunder sacred body. That lowly thief isn't even worthy of carrying your shoes. So how can you say who's stronger or weaker? Hee. Lei Yuan laughed arrogantly and patted Lei Jixin's arm. Junior sister Jixin is right. There's no need to compare someone who's about to die. In a moment, I'll make him kneel in front of you and beg for mercy. Lei Jixin also laughed, but it was a sneer. It was as if Chu Hen had already been reduced to an animal in a cage in her eyes. Boom! Clang! The sky above the non-phase heavenly tomb had already turned into a terrifying lightning zone. The violent lightning tribulations collided with one another, sending out an incomparably violent impact between heaven and earth. The void trembled and the earth collapsed. The few giant iron chains that connected the earth and the central pillar of the heaven burial mound shook violently. Electric arcs darted down along the iron chains and drilled into the ground. Even the weapons on the ground were flickering with arcs of light. The 8 Thunder Saint clan experts led by Lei Lu were like a pack of ferocious wolves, attacking Chu Hen fiercely. Chu Hen's aura was so cold that it was like a frigid, restless undercurrent in the deep sea. The black bandage wrapped around his body expanded and tightened under the impact of his true origin. The purple lightning that radiated from his body was comparable to an invincible blade. Wherever it passed, the silver lightning released by the Thunder Saint clan members would be cut down one after another. The other experts who had gathered around were all shocked. They were all secretly amazed by Chu Hen's strength. The young man before them was able to resist the corrosion of the formless Archblade's weapon soul and still be so powerful. It really made them cautious. Lei Lu and the others became more and more shocked. They originally thought that Chu Hen wouldn't be able to hold on for long, but the more he fought, the fiercer he became. He was like an unyielding, ferocious beast. The cold aura that radiated from his body made people's hearts palpitate. Boom! The purple lightning that covered a large area was like an explosion in the sky. The dazzling lightning that filled the sky was comparable to countless heavenly webs. The void distorted and the sky trembled. The lightning bolts were like giant swords that pierced through the sky, attacking Lei Lu and the others with the momentum of tearing the sky apart. Lei Lu's expression changed. In the face of such overwhelming divine might, he hurriedly shouted, "Use that move." Everyone understood tacitly and exploded with an extremely powerful aura. Zap zap. Violent silver arcs of lightning shot out, and the Thunder Sacred Clan turned into a beam of lightning and leaped into the sky at the same time. Bang! Boom! Beams of purple lightning collided with the flashing lightning, causing a beautiful shower of sparks to erupt between heaven and earth. The Thunder Saint clan members quickly changed their positions as they blocked Chu Hen's attacks. Lei Lu, who was in front of them, raised his lightning halberd and slammed it into a purple python-like lightning bolt. Bang! Lei Lu's halberd glowed brightly like a berserk dragon as he cleaved apart the lightning bolt in front of him. Heh, I've let you be complacent for too long. I'll take your life now. A mountain-like pressure shrouded Chu Hen. At this moment, the other experts of the Thunder Saint clan stood in different directions around Chu Hin. In 8 different directions, dazzling silver lightning erupted from each of their bodies. Zap, zap. Accompanied by an incomparably manic momentum, arcs of lightning quickly overflowed and connected to each other in the air. In the blink of an eye, with Chu Hin as the center, a lightning halo that was approximately 300 meters in diameter astonishingly appeared in the world. What's that? The crowd outside the battle couldn't help but be shocked. Could it be? There's no mistaking it. It's that move. Clang. Thunder roared. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the Thunder Saint clan members, led by Lei Lu, flipped their hands and formed hand seals. The lightning ring around Chu Hin began to emit a powerful aura of destruction. Immediately after, everyone completed their hand seals at the same time. Bolts of majestic lightning shot out of their bodies and headed for the center of the lightning ring. Every bolt of lightning traveled in a strange path. All sorts of strange and peculiar patterns interweaved and formed inside the halo. Chu Hin felt like he was in the center of an ever-changing gate of heavenly enlightenment. Terrifying lightning bolts shot in from all directions, like giant lightning blades that could destroy everything. Prison of 10,000 destruction. Lei Lu and the others let out a deep and melodious voice. It was as if they were announcing Chu Hin's death sentence. In an instant, the sound of thunder pierced through the ears. The entire interior of the circle of light, that Chu Hin, was turned into a cage covered in lightning. Anyone who stepped inside would be instantly turned into ashes. Prison of 10,000 destruction. Everyone was shocked when they heard those words. It really is this move. Even Saint King Realm powerhouses couldn't withstand this group secret skill. Today, I can see the prison of 10,000 destruction with my own eyes. It's a worthwhile trip. At this moment, everyone was even more amazed and fearful of the Thunder Saint clan's power. With this strike, no matter how strong Chu Hin was, he would instantly become a cripple. However, just at that time, Chu Hin, who was standing within the 10,000 lightning, unhurriedly opened his arms. Hum. Then, an abnormally strong spatial rhythm spread out in the sky above the 9 heavens. In the next moment, the airflow inside and outside the formless sky tomb stirred restlessly. In the dark sky covered by dark clouds, 7 beams of holy light pierced through the thick clouds and sprinkled down. What's going on? Everyone was stunned. 7 dazzling stars emerged from the 7 beams of light. 7 stars? How is this possible? An extremely uneasy aura filled the sky and earth. Radiance like the bright moon continuously flickered from Chu Hin's body. Chu Hin raised one hand to the sky, and the 7 stars in his palm bloomed with dazzling light patterns. Then, the sky above everyone's heads became even more turbulent. The 7 stars in the sky also erupted with the light of the sun. An unshakable heavenly might enveloped everyone's hearts. The 7 stars grew larger and larger. It felt like there was a mountain on top of their heads, giving them an indescribable pressure. Lei Xiaolan's face turned pale when she saw this. The scene that happened in the Thunder Saint Palace replayed in her mind. At that time, Chu Hin used this move to raise the entire Thunder Saint Palace to the ground, instantly killing thousands of Thunder Saint Palace disciples. Did he do it on purpose? Lei Xiaolan's body trembled slightly. She glanced sideways at Lei Jixin, who was not far away. The latter's face was as cold as ice, and the hatred in her eyes became even more intense. Suddenly, Chu Hin's eyes opened, and starlight surged in his eyes. Buzz! An extraordinary and shocking aura spread out in all directions, and along with the powerful waves of air that rippled in the sky, Chu Hin swung his heaven palm down. 7 stars, falling sky. Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, 7 giant light pillars that emitted endless terrifying auras descended from the sky. They were like world-destroying heavenly rays that pierced through the sky, falling straight down. Heaven and earth shook, and the sky lost its color. Beams of dazzling aurora illuminated the entire formless sky tomb. Bang! Boom! A violent and deafening explosion resounded as the 7 light pillars struck the lightning halo below. 9 heavenly stars, sweeping everywhere. The instant the two collided, the overbearing lightning cage shattered into pieces, exploding the entire area. Rumble. It was as if a destructive and frenzied storm had been set off between heaven and earth. Every beam of starlight was comparable to a divine punishment that could punish the heavens. Vast and terrifying aftershocks swept out. The mountain peaks and valleys around the non-phase sky tomb collapsed one after another. The ground cracked inch by inch. The iron chains that connected the ground to the central peak rapidly tightened, as if they would break in the next second. Under the impact of the violent force, the entire omniscient lightning summoning instantly exploded into pieces in the sky. Lei Lu and the others, who were caught off guard, were sent flying by the terrifying impact. One by one, they were sent flying like sandbags, crashing into the ground and walls. Especially Lei Lu, who was right in front, heavily smashed into a mountain wall. As he crashed into the mountain, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The aura he emitted was also suppressed to the extreme. Shock. It filled the faces of everyone in the room. Countless people looked at the scene in disbelief. Lei Xiaolan clenched her fists. Compared to before, Chu Hen's strength had increased by many times. Without waiting for the crowd to recover, Chu Hen looked coldly at Lei Lu, who had fallen into a pile of rubble, and raised his left hand condescendingly. The power of 7 stars surged in his palm. The Lightning Sacred Clan is only SOSO buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a luxurious and gorgeous starlight pillar shot out from his palm, sweeping up a terrifying aura of death as it attacked Lei Lu below. Lei Lu's expression changed drastically, his eyes filled with unprecedented fear. Chapter 1332. The Thunder Sacred Clan is only so. As Chu Hen's mocking words fell, the power of the 7 stars in his palm surged rapidly. A powerful energy wave erupted, and a dazzling light beam shot out like the starlight in the night sky. The pupils of Lei Lu, who had fallen into the rubble below, quickly shrank to the size of a needle. A thick aura of death shrouded over. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and each of them revealed an expression of deep astonishment. The situation was reversed in an instant. Crack. Just before the starlight beam was about to destroy the thunderbolt, a series of flickering green light arcs suddenly intertwined in the air and formed a semi-arc-shaped shield in front of the thunderbolt. Bang! A loud and heavy sound rang out. The imposing starlight pillar solidly collided with the half-arc. Following the aftermath of the chaotic air wave that wantonly splashed out, the pillar of light released by Chu Hen was actually directly shattered, transforming into fragments of light patterns that filled the sky. Voila! The turbulent airflow whistled. Everyone was stunned, and their faces turned pale. That's nether fire heavenly lightning? The lightning is mixed with the nether green flame. It must be nether fire heavenly lightning. Words that were filled with seriousness were slowly spat out from everyone's mouths. Looking at the flickering dark green lightning arcs, everyone's faces were filled with intense shock and dread. It can't be wrong. Ranked 37th on the ranking, Thunder Sacred Clan's genius expert, Lei Yuan. Rumble. Thunder seemed to rumble in the sky above the non-phase sky tomb, and the already unusually restless atmosphere became even more uneasy. In an instant, everyone's gazes converged on the same spot. In the sky behind Lei Lu, a young figure with a steady aura like a mountain stood calmly between heaven and earth. There were no obvious energy fluctuations coming from the other party's body, but everyone could feel a formless and powerful pressure coming from him. Even the floating cloud city genius Li Donghe, who was defeated by Chu Hen, could not help but clench his fists. His eyes narrowed, and he murmured in a deep voice, "Lei Yuan." The heart-palpitating spatial rhythm was like ripples on the surface of water, striking everyone's heartstrings. Thunder Abyss. He possessed the bloodline limit of the sacred thunder body. prodigy on the Wind Cloud list. He was a genuine Saint King stage powerhouse. What was the Saint King realm? Once he was enraged, blood would flow like a river. The power he possessed could annihilate countless living beings in the world with a flip of his hand. An absolutely fearsome existence. Chu Hen, who was wrapped in black bandages, looked up coldly and fearlessly met Lei Yuan's gaze. I thought you would only stand on the side. From the very beginning, Chu Hen knew that the person in front of him was the central figure of the Thunder Saint clan. I'm also very surprised that you were able to wait until I made my move. Lei Yuan's tone was indifferent as he raised the corner of his lips. Looks like it's not an injustice that the Thunder Saint Palace died in your hands. At the mention of the Thunder Saint Palace again, Chu Hen was already certain that there was some unknown relationship between the Thunder Saint Palace and the Thunder Saint clan. On the other side, Lei Zhixin's expression was already frosty. She said coldly, "Senior brother Lei Yuan, there's no need to waste your breath on him. Kill him and avenge the Thunder Saint Palace." Her words were filled with hatred. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Hen's cold eyes swept over her. When Lei Zhixin met Chu Hen's cold eyes, her heart trembled. It was as if she was looking at the Grim Reaper, and an indescribable fear instantly flowed through her blood. Lei Zhixin's face turned pale as she called out to Lei Yuan again. "Senior brother Lei Yuan." Lei Yuan smiled. He did not seem to be in a hurry at all. "I originally wanted to go to the Eastern Victory State to look for you after the Sacred War ends, but I didn't expect it to be like this, so—" Chu Hen was not the slightest bit afraid. "So," Lei Yuan's voice paused before he changed the topic. His cold eyes abruptly erupted with the light of lightning. "This is your fate." Countless flickering dark green lightning arcs swam out from within Lei Yuan's body. His body moved, leaving behind a lightning afterimage on the spot where he was standing. His actual body instantly appeared in the sky above Chu Hen. Soon after, a palm was thrown forward. Immediately, wind and clouds were stirred in the sky. The storm was extremely great as a frightening palm pressed down on Chu Hen's head. The boundless attack was like a mountain torrent. Chu Hen's pupils faintly trembled. At the same time, arcs of purple lightning in the shape of horned dragons revolved around his body. Bang! A heavy muffled sound resounded from high up in the sky. As the palm descended, its might shook the heavens and earth. A purplish-green intersecting chi runes swept out from the sky of the non-phase heavenly tomb. A terrifying impact force comparable to the undercurrents of the deep sea violently surged down. Chu Hen's figure shook as he fell in a straight line. With a boom, he heavily smashed into the ground. Rocks of various sizes burst from the ground. With Chu Hen at the center, a huge pit rapidly opened up in the ground. Ho! The surrounding crowd could not help but suck in a breath of cold air as awe filled their faces. Was this the power of the Saint King stage? In front of Lei Yuan, Chu Hen was completely powerless. The remaining force of the palm spread along the ground, causing it to crack inch by inch. In the next instant, the rubble exploded as a figure surrounded by purple lightning leapt out from the rubble. Everyone was slightly startled. Although Chu Hen was in a somewhat sorry state, his aura had not been suppressed too much. A strange purple light seemed to be flickering in his deep eyes. "Not bad. You can still get up after taking a palm of mine." As his voice faded, Lei Yuan thrust his palm downwards, arcs of lightning crisscrossing between his palm and arm. The unusually restless power of thunder and lightning let out a loud cry like that of thousands of thunderbirds. In an instant, a bolt of lightning shot out from Lei Yuan's palm and pierced through the sky towards Chu Hen. This bolt of lightning was extremely fast, and although its range was not large, its penetrative power was extremely great. Asterisk Chi. Asterisk the sound of air being cut apart was particularly sharp and clear. When arrived in front of Chu Hen, he moved his feet slightly, and the bolt of lightning almost brushed past Chu Hen's left shoulder. Asterisk Pong. Asterisk the sharp and rapid bolt of lightning immediately plunged into the rubble beneath Chu Hen's feet, but the moment the rubble beneath Chu Hen's feet exploded, a shower of sparks flew out. The sparks were like shattered crystal fragments, flashing with a green fluorescent light. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes slanted, and he immediately retreated with his fastest speed. Asterisk pung. Asterisk like ignited dust and debris. The scattered sparks suddenly exploded into a ball of dark green flames. What was surprising was that this dark green flame did not have the slightest bit of heat. Instead, it was extremely cold, like a ghostly fire in the night. That's nether fire, someone outside the arena exclaimed. Yes, according to the rumors, Lei Yuan used his own bloodline to fuse with the power of the 1,000-year nether fire from the Shadow Abyss, thus creating the nether fire heavenly thunder. Compared to other people's sacred lightning body, Lei Yuan's bloodline is even more powerful. The power of lightning and nether fire can be switched back and forth as he wills it. Just this kind of divine power is enough to make other geniuses on the wind cloud list tremble in fear. The exploding nether fire surged out wantonly. Although Chu Hen's reaction was fast enough, he was still affected by a portion of the nether fire. The cold green flames quickly wrapped around Chu Hen's arm. Asterisk hum. Asterisk the formless archblade that covered Chu Hen's arm also let out a strong hum. Chu Hen suddenly felt a cold current invade the meridians and blood vessels in his arm, and a numbing pain similar to blood clotting spread throughout his arm. Chu Hen was secretly shocked. The power of the nether fire heavenly thunder could actually penetrate the surface of his body and directly into his body. Seems like you're a little careless? A frivolous voice came out of Lei Yuan's mouth. Then, a series of lightning bolts shot down from the sky. Every bolt of lightning was as beautiful as a light arrow that pierced through the sky. They were fierce, swift and fierce, and exuded a destructive sharpness. In a hurry, Chu Hen did not take the attack head-on. Instead, he dodged and dodged the dense attacks. Pung! Pung! As the continuous lightning beams fell, the ground was blasted open, and at the same time, balls of green hellfire burst out. The range of the nether fire rapidly expanded, spreading out along the ground. At the same time, Lei Yuan's attack range was also targeted at Chu Hen's surroundings. He deliberately blocked Chu Hen's path of retreat. Every bolt of lightning fell in front of Chu Hen. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen was already surrounded by the green nether fire. Feel the pain of being burned by the nether fire, but not dying. Lei Yuan stared mockingly at Chu Hen, who was enveloped within the sea of flames. The corners of his mouth were gently raised, revealing a trace of ridicule. Subsequently, he formed a seal with a single hand, and a strand of strange light runes spread from his body. Nether fire, purgatory, purgatory. Whoosh! In the next moment, the green nether fire below suddenly rose into the sky, and the fire rushed to a height of hundreds of meters. The heaven and earth were scorched until they were distorted. In the sky above the underworld fire, a huge, sinister skull quietly condensed. A ghastly aura that caused one's heart to palpitate to the extreme shrouded the inside and outside of the non-phase heavenly tomb. The mountain-like skull let out a strange howl. The underworld fire that emitted the power to burn the sky was like a storm that could swallow a small boat, instantly submerging Chu Hen within. Wah! An ear-piercing howl soared into the sky, and within the sea of fire, there were large bolts of lightning. The lightning connected the ground and the gigantic skull in the sky. It was like chains and railings that sealed off this space. As for Chu Hen, he was like an object that was trapped in a prison. Witnessing this scene, everyone felt a chill down their spine. There was only fear in their eyes as they looked at Lei Yuan. Then, looking at Chu Hen, who had disappeared into the sea of nether fire, they could not help but look at each other and smile. In the end, the boss is still the boss. That person is going to die. He asked for it. Just because he defeated Li Donghe, he arrogantly thinks that he can fight against the Thunder Sacred Clan. How naive. Chapter 1333. Crack, clang. Sharp bolts of lightning soared into the sky from the sea of flames like dragons and pythons, like the bars of a huge metal cage that sealed off the world. That huge malevolent skull was like a powerful seal suppressing Chu Hen. The flickering green, netherworld fire instantly submerged it within. Looking at the scene before them, everyone in the entire formless sky tomb felt their hearts tremble. The destructive power of the netherfire heavenly lightning was like a cold current that enveloped them. It was awe-inspiring. Heh, as expected of senior brother Lei Yuan. He ended the battle so quickly. Standing behind Lei Jixin and Lei Xiaolan, the young men and women from the Lightning Sacred Clan all looked at him with admiration. Of course, he's too naive to think that he can contend against senior brother Lei Yuan with the mysterious killer divine lightning. Junior sister Jixin, how you want to deal with that person will depend on your mood. Lei Jixin's face revealed a cold smile when she heard the words of the people around her. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. Ever since the incident at the Lightning Saint Palace in the victorious Eastern Prefecture, she had always wanted to kill Chu Hen to vent her anger. She had originally planned to return to the Eastern continent after the sacred battle, but she never expected her wish to be fulfilled in advance. Humph, I won't let him die so easily. Lei Jixin coldly muttered to herself as a cold current surged in her eyes. However, Lei Xiaolan gently bit her lip as she cautiously stared at the area enveloped by netherfire. She, who was born with extraordinary perception, sensed that there was an abnormally restless energy rapidly expanding in the center of the netherfire. It's not over yet, Lei Xiaolan subconsciously blurted out. The instant her voice rang out, the eyes of Lei Yuan, who stood proudly in the sky, lifted. With an earth-shattering boom, an incomparably powerful black fist suddenly broke through the raging green netherfire. Its terrifying power was comparable to the light of obsidian that pierced through the sky. It broke through the shackles and slammed into the huge, sinister skull. A deafening boom shook the heavens and the earth. The terrifying black beam of light was comparable to a giant blade that could split the sky. It forcibly pierced through the mountain-like netherworld skull. What? Everyone present was astonished. This guy? There's even a Saint King realm seal. Countless strong black lights darted out from the cracks of the giant skull, and the netherworld thunder and lightning that connected the sky and the earth shrank rapidly like a dragon that had its tendons pulled out. Boom! An explosion sounded, and a shocking scene that was comparable to the exploding thunder of the stars swept across. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the ferocious netherworld skull exploded into pieces in the void. The mighty shockwave, mixed with the green flames below, exploded from within. Circle after circle, the ground split open and debris flew into the sky. Amidst the monstrous flames, a cold and arrogant figure once again appeared in front of everyone. Chu Hen's entire body was shrouded in a powerful dark aura. In addition to the formless Emperor Blade's soul wrapped around his body, there was also an overbearing black radiance. What a powerful aura! What an overbearing aura! Everyone became more and more shocked. They found it hard to believe that a ninth-order eternal realm cultivator could erupt with such a shocking divine might. The chaotic airflow caused Chu Hen's black hair and robes to flutter. His handsome face, which had a few bloodstains on it, had an indescribable coldness to it. He raised his head and stared at the domineering figure in the sky, purple lightning flashing in his eyes. "It's starting," indifferent words spat out from Chu Hen's mouth. Saying so, he stamped the ground with one foot. Bang! The moment the ground split open, Chu Hen shot up into the sky like an aurora. So fast, everyone's pupils trembled. Lei Yuan's eyes also shrank rapidly. In an instant, a cold aura swept over, and a figure as sharp as a sword immediately appeared in front of him. Bang! A dull explosion, accompanied by a vast airflow, swept out in all directions. The two palms collided head-on. The moment the two palms met, green lightning overflowed from one side, while demonic purple lightning flowed on the other. The two figures faced each other in the sky, the power of thunder and lightning clashing violently, shaking the heavens. "Not bad. You actually have the ability to get close to me," Lei Yuan said mockingly. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly. Thank you for your praise. I didn't think that a small, victorious East state would produce someone like you. But it's a pity. Lei Yuan paused, a frivolous and playful look on his face. And because of you, that group of people from the victorious East state will be met with a bloodbath. Lei Yuan said it very casually. It was as if he was reading his sanction. In his eyes, those people from the victorious East state were merely ants to be toyed with. However, when the other party said this, Chu Hen smiled, but his smile was inexplicably cold. Not a bad idea, but it's a pity you don't have the ability. This was what a nobody said to a genius on the stellar list. It was also what an ancient eternal realm said to a saint king. Lei Yuan's eyes turned cold. An invisible killing intent surged out like an undercurrent. Not a bad last word. Crack. Green lightning wantonly erupted from Lei Yuan's body, and a majestic aura rose into the sky. At the same time, purple lightning radiated from Chu Hen's body. Streaks of incomparably violent lightning bolts intertwined with each other and shot straight into the sky. In an instant, a ferocious lightning dragon condensed in the sky behind the two of them. The two shouted fiercely, and the two lightning dragons in the sky erupted with astral energy, colliding head-on. Lightning of different colors bloomed like a rain of fireworks. Tens of thousands of lightning tribulations lit up the sky, illuminating both inside and outside of the formless heavenly tomb. Quang dang! Boom! Wind swirled, and thunder shook the sky. The constantly diverging lightning was like a giant net that covered the sky, and everyone below it trembled in fear. They were afraid that if they were not careful, they would be caught in the crossfire. The moment the two lightning powers collided, Chu Hen and Lei Yuan were both sent flying backwards. Profound, killing divine thunder is a bit stronger than the rumors say, Lei Yuan said coldly. Underworld fire heavenly thunder is only SOS. Chu Hen responded lightly. Arrogant. The two paused for a second, and in the next moment, they burst out with powerful attacks again. Bang! Boom! The two beams of light collided violently between the sky and earth, then quickly separated and then closed again. The sky was filled with lightning arcs, and it was a dazzling sight. Everyone present was dazzled by the scene. The two of them were extremely fast, and many people couldn't even see their figures clearly. They could only catch traces of afterimages. It's really unexpected that someone outside the formless heavenly list can fight with Lei Yuan like this. Yeah, I can't imagine. The spectators were even more amazed. They were even more surprised. They were even more curious about Chu Hen's identity. On the other hand, although the Thunder Sacred Tribe was surprised, no one was worried. Interesting indeed, to be able to last so long against Senior Lei Yuan. Junior Sister Xiaolan seems a little uneasy. Someone noticed Lei Xiaolan's abnormality. I know nothing. Lei Xiaolan exchanged a look with Lei Jixin and then hesitated. Lei Jixin's eyes narrowed, and she glanced at her coldly, but she only sneered. She knew what Lei Xiaolan was worried about, but she also knew how powerful Lei Yuan was. There was only one thought in her mind, and that was how to deal with Chu Hen. Bang! The chaotic aftermath was like ripples on the surface of water, and the purple aurora and green starlight once again exploded in the sky above the formless sky mound. The air currents whistled in all directions. As the two of them retreated, a cold smile appeared on Lei Yuan's face. Then his eyes lit up with lightning. Two beams of lightning suddenly shot out from Lei Yuan's eyes, accompanied by an incredibly powerful aura. This is a lightning secret technique activated with his eyes. I can't dodge it. The spectators frowned, and their faces were serious. Chu Hen had just used up his previous strength and had yet to recover. Faced with Lei Yuan's sudden attack, he naturally couldn't fight back. However, just as the two lightning lights were about to hit, deep within Chu Hen's eyes that flickered with purple lightning, a black dot faintly appeared. A sharp whistling sound rang out, along with a powerful, strange rhythm. In an instant, two demonic purple beams of light shot out from Chu Hen's eyes. Whoosh! Everyone's heart trembled. It was also an attack launched with his eyes. Without giving anyone any time to be shocked, the purple beam of light accurately struck the lightning that was flying over. Boom! The four beams of light were like the destructive light of 1,000 years ago. As soon as they collided, the sky exploded, and the power of tsunami swept out in all directions. The rapidly expanding shockwave swept towards the two. Lei Yuan, who had miscalculated once again, had a cold expression on his face. As a Saint King, it was already a great loss of face for him to be unable to defeat the ancient eternal realm Chu Hen after so long. What's more, he had yet to establish a clear upper hand. This was something Lei Yuan could not tolerate. It's time to end this. Lei Yuan's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly stabilized his retreating figure. At the same time, he released a wave of lightning. Bang! The chaotic shockwave was instantly crushed by his aura. Then, thunder rumbled and a storm rose. Countless violent bolts of lightning burst out from Lei Yuan's body. The might of a divine general who could control the heavens filled the surroundings. Everyone could feel the violent and domineering aura from Lei Yuan. The real show is about to begin. Senior brother Lei Yuan is finally going to get serious. The Thunder Saint clan members laughed lightly. Lei Jixin's eyes were especially bright. The man in front of her could take back all the light she had lost. It's been a little long. Lei Yuan stared coldly at Chu Hen. Chi-Chi. More and more powerful lightning bolts intertwined around his body, like giant vines flickering with electricity or like giant pythons. Chu Hen's eyes darkened slightly, and a solemn look appeared on his face. Following Lei Yuan's roar, countless massive pillars of lightning gathered around him. The power of lightning emitting an aura of destruction rapidly enveloped Lei Yuan's entire body, layer by layer, instantly enveloping him. The intertwining power of thunder rapidly spread outwards, and a giant figure rapidly formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Woo! A wolf howl that pierced the 9 heavens abruptly invaded everyone's soul. In the blink of an eye, a giant thunder wolf over 1 kilometer long appeared in the sky above the phaseless heavenly tomb. This ferocious beast was extremely terrifying, and its facial features were clear and distinct. In the middle of its forehead, there was a third giant vertical eye. Violent lightning bolts shot out from that giant eye. Dark fire thunder's soul.